Hey guys! This is part 9 of What If Naruto Was a Digimon Tamer. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 22, Rescuing the Light. Point 5. The light that had come with the Biomerge digivolutions died down, and both the Tamers and the Demon Lords looked in shock as they saw the newly formed Mega Digimon. But how? This shouldn't be possible. Lilithmon stuttered as she took a step back. The power coming off the Royal Knight and the dragon was unreal. They are Mega level? She exclaimed. You think a little light show and a little power boost is gonna be able to help you? No one is stronger than the mighty Beelzemon. You hear me, no one. Beelzemon spread his raven-feathered wings and took off. Lilithmon looked at her partner in shock. No, you baka, don't attack, they're much stronger than they were before. Lilithmon sighed as she saw the sin of gluttony, not even paying attention to her words. He's gonna get himself deleted. The sin of lust groaned, face-palming. The gun-wielding Digimon flew towards Zhuqiaomon, who stood there without even making a move, his eyes closed off to the world around him. Beelzemon smirked as he saw Zhuqiaomon wasn't really paying that much attention to his surroundings. Or so he thought. Beelzemon was a few inches away from the steel dragon's form and lashed out with a fierce right hook, but it was then that Zhuqiaomon's golden-colored eyes snapped open and the final enemy, and suddenly Beelzemon was thrown back by a powerful force, sending the demon lord to the ground and stopping at the feet of Lilithmon. I told you not to attack, she said. Beelzemon spat out the dirt from his mouth and dusted his jacket. Shut it, bitch, he growled before turning to Zhuqiaomon, whose eyes still held that powerful glow within them. Beelzemon wiped his lip of the blood that had come from it being burst, and felt the swollen part of his face starting to go down due to his healing factor. A chuckle came from the silver-scaled dragon. Not bad for 3 punches, Zhuqiaomon said, his voice sounding like the combined vocal tones of both Naruto and Doraemon. 3 punches? Lilithmon asked herself. There was no way a Digimon could strike that fast. A chuckle emerged from the Royal Knight at that comment, causing the sin of lust to look at his armored looked at Gallantmon, who stood there with that same look, a look of power and confidence. She hated it. She hissed before taking a deep breath. Phantom pain! She cried out, exhaling a cloud of black mist from her maw that rocketed towards Gallantmon. The Royal Knight turned and just stared at the black cloud of data-deleting smoke before raising his lance. The lance then released a glow of golden light that met head-on with the phantom pain attack and nullified it, causing the attacks to cancel each other out. Not bad, Gallantmon said, his voice a mixture of Takato's and Gilman's. While the other Tamers and their partners said in shock, except for Jeri, who was still in a state of depression at seeing her partner vanish before her eyes. Henry and Rika took out their Deox and scanned the 2 Mega-level Digimon. Okay, Henry said. Gallantmon, a Mega-level Digimon? He is a Royal Knight, and has armor composed of 99.9% chrome digits and is therefore nearly indestructible. His attacks can be done through the use of his Holy Shield, Aegis, and the Holy Lance, Graham. Gallantmon's attacks are Lightning Joust, Shield of the Just, and Saber Shot, Henry read. Rika scanned the fusion of her boyfriend and his draconic partner, and was surprised when not much data came up. Whoa, there's not much data on this guy, but it says his name is Zhuqiaomon, his alias, the final enemy, and possesses the ancient Digicore of the dragon, whatever that is. He is a Mega-level Digimon and possesses powers that Digimon can only dream of having. His attacks are Dragon Fist, Brave Metal, and Dorujin. The red-haired girl read. Zhuqiaomon and Gallantmon looked over their new forms before looking at each other. Not a bad look. To Katamon, Gilman's voice was heard through Gallantmon. Whoa, I'm confused. It seems as if we merged together or something, 'cause I feel like me. But I can also hear Gilman. Takato's voice was heard this time. Inside of Gallantmon's armor, Takato was floating in a sea of gold data. But through his eyes he didn't see that, but rather what Gallantmon saw. Apparently Zhuqiaomon replied with Doraemon's voice. Gallantmon turned to Zhuqiaomon. Naruto, Doraemon, is that you? Gilman's voice asked. It seems this is the final form between the bond of a Tamer and a Digimon. We have biologically merged together to become the mega forms of our Digimon, Naruto said through his new reptilian form, flexing his new claws, his body floating in a sea of silvery blue data within Zhuqiaomon's body. But like Takato, he couldn't see his body, but rather only saw the body that he was currently using, the body of Doraemon's mega form. It appears so. Doraemon spoke through his mega form. It seems that in order for tamed Digimon to achieve Mega Digivolution, One must have a strong enough bond with their Digimon, and then they merge biologically. A Biomerge Digivolution. There was silence for a while as the two newly formed Megas continued to test their new bodies' movements. It's too confusing to explain. We're no longer Naruto or Doraemon, Doraemon said. We're Doragormon. Exactly, and we're no longer Takato or Gilman. We're Gallantmon now, Gilman said. Stop with the talking, you morons. It's time to fight. Beelzemon roared. Lilithmon nodded as she got into a fighting stance with her partner. Doragormon readied his claws and spread his wings while Gallantmon held his shield and lance at the ready. You wanna fight? Doragormon growled before scratching his claws against each other, causing a few sparks to fly before they burst into flame. The orange flames licked the air as they shrouded the dragon of steel's entire hands. Gallantmon's lance was surrounded by a golden aura and ready to pierce through his opponents with it. Let's go! And with that the four Mega Digimon charged each other. Shinjuku Hypnos Towers. Yamaki was in his office holding the messaging pad and had all the parents of the Tamers gathered before him. Are our children alright? I'm worried, Takato's mother said. Now Seiko spoke with a small smile. I'm sure the children are fine. The parents still had a frown on their faces as they thought of their children's fates. They had already believed in the explanation that Yamaki gave them about their children going into the digital world, as he called it, and were in there to save a friend. Suddenly a loud beep was heard and the adults all looked at the messaging pad Yamaki was holding. Alright, we finally got a message from the kids, the blonde owner of Hypnos stated. The parents/grandparents quickly crowded around the suit-wearing computer genius as they looked at the messages from their children. Scanning through the messages as Yamaki scrolled down, they sighed in relief as they said how that they were all okay and were just taking a break. Of course this message was sent a good few hours ago, but they didn't need to know that. Well, at least we know they're all alive and safe, Kenta's father said. I'm gonna slap that boy upside the head when he gets back for going into that digital world without my permission, Kazu's mother snorted, lightening the mood for all of them as they laughed at the brown-haired woman's comment. Yamaki? Janyu, Henry's father, walked up to the dirty blonde-haired man. Were you able to find them all? He asked. Yamaki smirked as he quickly walked over the single desk in the room and pressed the button on the intercom box. Riley, please send up the guests. Yes, sir, the red-haired woman replied from the other end. Janyu smirked and cracked his fingers. Oh, we're gonna have some fun today, the monster's creator commented as the other parents gave him weird looks. Digital World Dark Prison. Lucemon chuckled darkly as he watched the biomerging Digimon fighting his fellow demon lords. Oh, you poor fools. You have no idea as to what power, my power, that you released into this world. The fallen angel smiled as he stood up from his sitting position. The golden bands around his wrists and ankles glowed with a golden light, and his tattoos shone were surrounded by a purple haze as the digital hazard symbol on the back of his left hand pulsed with power. With the dark digivolutions of Doragormon and Monodramon, their virus natures seeped into the earth of the digital world as their mere existence could cause the digital world's very destruction. It is said that those two dragons, with just their mere task of existing, can cause meltdowns and destruction of data from the inside out. And it has done so. Those two viruses were about to destroy the digital world starting at the core, within my dark prison. Luckily I am able to harness that power. Lucemon's digital hazard began to make a large beating sound, like a heartbeat, as a swirl of red and black data surrounded the hand. The raw, destructive, viral power of Monodramon. He stared at the red areas of data, and the strength of the Dark Dragon DG core from Doragormon is now mine. The powers of the two virus dragons began to swirl at a faster pace around his hand before the digital hazard seemed to absorb the power into Lucemon's left hand. The fallen angel smirked before his person was surrounded by a mixture of golden light from his bands and the evil violet from his digital hazard. Lucemon looked up and floated to the top of his prison where the main lock of his prison lay, Fanglongmon's elements of light and darkness that held the dark prison together. The eight-winged angel channeled all of the power from Monodramon and Doragormon as well some of his own into his left hand. The heartbeat sound got louder and faster as Lucemon looked at the elemental seal. Clenching his hand into a fist, the blonde-haired angel smiled broadly before punching through the seal like it was made of glass, and a large surge of power pulsed from the prison before it shattered into millions of flakes of data which Lucemon watched as they disintegrated. The fallen angel chuckled before the chuckling became louder and louder until it became full-blown out maniacal laughter. He looked up at the long way up from the core. It would at least approximately a weekday's time in the real world's time before he would reach the crust, but he didn't mind. And with these three words, Lucemon's reign of terror was about to rear its ugly head. Freedom is mine. Elsewhere in the digital world, Fanglongmon's eyes, shining orange eyes, snapped open, staring around the white void that represented the realm of the god of the digital world. A pulse of power washed over him, just as he felt it for the entire digital world. The presence was familiar. The dragon of the center's eyes widened. No. No. It can't be. We stopped him for good. Fanglongmon roared loudly in rage and distress for his world before he opened a digital portal where the dark prison was located, only to find no dark prison, and no prisoner. The bronze-scaled dragon trembled with anger, the digi-cores surrounding his body pulsing with his ever-increasing rage. Lucemon, back with the Tamers. Doragoromon went for Lilithmon while Gallantmon paired off with Beelzemon. The sin of lust was quickly tackled to the ground by the much larger Steel Dramon Digimon, causing the two to roll on the ground. The dragon then went with the roll, and when Lilithmon was on the bottom, he planted his flaming claws against her face as a surface and pushed off of her before jumping off. Lilithmon screeched as she clutched her burnt face. Gritting her teeth, she stood, her face healing due to the healing factor that most Digimon possessed. Nazar Nail! She roared, lashing out with the golden claws on her hands. The final enemy smirked, avoiding the moves as if they were in slow motion before he grabbed one of Lilithmon's arms, burning her once more, to stop a strike from her left Nazar Nail before spinning and crashing his long tail into her side, sending her skidding backwards before rushing forth, and curled his hands into fists. The orange flames increased in size before he struck out with both fists. The flames morphed into the shapes of a dragon's head before they impacted. Dragon Fist! Doragoromon yelled out as he crashed his two fiery fists into Lilithmon's stomach, sending her tumbling through the air before crashing into a nearby rock and shattering said rock. Snuffing out the flames on his hands, the dragon of silver watched as his opponent dusted the rubble off of her person. Lilithmon quickly recovered before running towards her opponent and stabbed forth with her golden blades in an attempt to strike down the dragon with her Nazar Nail. Doragoromon dodged the attacks easily and fluidly, thus frustrating the sin of lust even more. She then performed an X-shaped slash with both her nails, causing Doragoromon to raise his arms and grab the female Digimon's wrists to prevent himself from being struck. The two were at a sudden stalemate before Lilithmon stopped forcing and smirked. Due to the lack of opposing force, Doragoromon lost his footing and Lilithmon released herself from the reptilian Digimon's hold. She quickly slammed a powerful fist to the side of the silver-scaled dragon's snout, much to Doragormon's surprise, before he suddenly felt a force slam into his stomach. That force turning out to be Lilithmon's boot and sent the dragon skidding backwards before the demon lord saw her opening and struck forth, slashed with her golden Nazar nails, but was caught by surprise as her Nazar nails, which would usually disintegrate a Digimon through just a single touch alone, created sparks as they came into contact with the other mega-level Digimon's scales and caused sparks to fly from the physician. "Nanny?" she uttered before she was greeted with a flaming claw slash from Doragoromon, sending her backwards from the attack. Doragoromon chuckled as he watched the spot where the Nazar nail had struck his chest. "Interesting thing, it seems as if our combined bodies allowed our body to become impenetrable to your blades." Lilithmon Doragoromon spoke in combined voices of Naruto and Doraemon. Lilithmon growled before slashing with Nazar nails, and Doragoromon countered with his fiery claws. It was as if they were copying each other's stances and attacks as they clashed against one another, spark and embers flying from the contact between the indestructible blades. Lilithmon then saw an opening and stabbed her golden claw forward. Nazar nail! Knowing it would have no effect, the demon lord instead used it as a way to knock her opponent back before she ran forth and jumped. Throwing her legs out in front of her, she became straight as a board as she slammed both her feet into the Biomerge Digimon's chest. The dragon flew through the air and skidded along the ground before perforing a backhand spring to land back on his feet, only to be greeted with the sight of Lilithmon taking a deep breath. Phantom pain. The black cloud of death raced towards him, but he was able to dodge it, mostly as the cloud of data-destroying mist glanced his shoulder, and Doragoromon roared in agony as he felt that piece of shoulder, small as it may be, being painfully eaten away. Doragoromon quickly coated his claws in flame and evaporated the mist and looked to see the piece of his shoulder missing. Growling, Doragoromon turned towards the demon lord, who smiled at the prospect of having her opponent being eaten alive by her data-destroying mist. Doragoromon growled even more before red energy formed around that area of his shoulder, surprising both fighters as the red energy became data and suddenly flesh and scale became reborn in a mere matter of seconds. "Remember, Kit, I'm still here. Whether you're biomerged or not, I'm still a part of you, and I'm not going to have you lose to a bitch like her." "Kyubi?" the voices of Naruto and Doraemon asked in unison. The great nine-tailed Bijou nodded within his prison. "Now just go kick her ass. I'll heal you when you get hit, but don't let up. Strike her down." "Arigato," Kyubi Naruto's voice answered. Doragoromon stood to his feet and then jumped into the air before coating his hands with flames. the flames morphing into dragons' heads. Dragon Fist. The bipedal reptile slammed his fists into the earth, and suddenly the ground quaked and split, creating a path towards Lilithmon before a river of fire rose from the space in the crack and outshot a large fire dragon. The dragon roared as it sped towards Lilithmon, who quickly spread her wings and took to the skies only for Doragormon to appear in front of her. But she reacted quickly and breathed out a column of black mist at the Digimon's arm. Doragormon roared in pain as the phantom pain attack ripped away his flesh and was kicked away by Lilithmon. The onslaught of physical attacks continued as Lilithmon grabbed Doragormon and flew downwards and slammed her opponent into the ground. Using her great strength, she lifted him up out of the crater she just made and let him drop before stopping him mid-fall as her fist planted itself in his scale-hard gut. Doragormon grunted as it seemed that her hits were getting a lot stronger. It was then that Doragormon's golden eyes widened as he spotted the source of her newfound strength. Located in the center of her chest, just above her visible cleavage, the pure violet symbol of the former prisoner of the dark prison, the digital hazard, burned with power. Kyuso the Mega cursed as he was hit in the chin with an uppercut, sending him upwards. Lilithmon, however, jumped after and performed the technique of his human half. Grabbing onto the dragon's ankles, the demon lord performed several front flips to build momentum and slammed Doragormon harshly into the ground, causing an imprint of the Mega to form. She watched as Doragormon stood to his feet only for him to be sent back down as she crashed an unforgiving elbow into his face. The Biomerge Digimon roared in pain before Lilithmon dragged Doragormon along the ground by his tail. Luckily, his scales were more than enough to prevent any pain, but being pulled by his tail and smashing through a few boulders could really hurt sometimes. Lilithmon then swung Doragormon around her head by his tail and pelted the dragon through the air, sending him crashing through a multitude of boulders before he was stopped, but Lilithmon's heel slamming into his skull and sending him to the ground. Phantom pain. Doragormon roared in anguish as his other arm was being eaten away. Phantom pain. Phantom pain. 2 more exhalations of the deadly black mist caused Doragormon even more pain as his tail and stomach were struck. His skin was like it was being melted away, revealing the bright, silvery blue flesh that was his data. Lilithmon chuckled before she took a deep breath. Say goodnight, she chuckled as she looked at the closed eyes of the pain-racked dragon. I refuse to lose here. Naruto's body floated lifelessly in the sea of data as he stared through Doragormon's eyes as Lilithmon was going to build up all of her remaining strength into that final phantom pain attack. I know. We came to rescue Calumon and save him from being used by Zhuqiaomon. We will not lose here. We've come too far to die here. Naruto's eyes flashed a mixture of cerulean blue and blood red as his emotions caused a bit of Kyuubi's Yukai to leak through, as newfound power coursed through his and Doragormon's body. The sea of silvery blue data Naruto's body was floating and suddenly pulsed before the power of the DG core of the dragon erupted like an active volcano. Lilithmon was suddenly caught off guard as Doragormon's body was surrounded by a silvery blue aura, like a burst of energy that gave the Mega level the appearance that it was on fire, and his golden eyes snapped open, glowing with the power it had originally held during the formation of this Biomerge Digimon. Red energy flowed in great bursts and continued to flow and mix with the silvery blue, making it take on a light shade of violet. Data reconfigured and reconstructed as it synthesized to make proteins and reform Doragormon's lost limbs and stomach area. Lilithmon screeched like the bat she was, covering her eyes from the brightness of the Mega Digimon's aura, and then covered her ears as Doragormon roared. Twisting his body, the 17-foot-tall dragon performed a windmill, tripping her feet out from under her. As she was on the ground, Doragormon stamped his foot down on her to hold her down. There's a reason I'm called the final enemy. Because I will be your final enemy, Lilithmon. And for one of the first times since she was going to be killed by Lucemon, Lilithmon felt pure fear as the fearsome image of this draconic Digimon burned itself into her mind. Doragormon raised his foot before grabbing Lilithmon by her throat, and then he ignited that hand, burning the demon lord's throat and neck. But her healing factor kept its rapid pace, so she survived. But that was more of a curse than a blessing as Doragormon let her go, dropping to her knees only to find a literally steel-hard foot smash into her face, knocking her onto her back. Doragormon threw Lilithmon into the air and waited for her to fall. The sin of lust cursed in her mind as she fell. She was in too much pain to spread her wings and stop her descent, only for her curses to be replaced by white-hot pain as the embodiment of the DG core of the dragon performed a powerful slash with his fire-coated claws and sent Lilithmon into the ground. Standing to her feet, Lilithmon prepared to attack, only for the dragon to have appeared in front of her with a burst of speed and slash. burning away parts of the demon lord's dress before spinning and wrapping his tail around her waist like a robe around the neck of a wild stallion before raising her into the air and slamming her down into the ground with enough force to cause the earth to crack before throwing her away like a rag doll. Lilithmon bounced along the ground before righting herself, skidding along the ground, using her sharp nails to stop her movement by digging them into the black earth. She looked up as Doragorman snuffed out the flames coating his claws as he took to the skies, his steel-like wings flapping only once to get to a suitable altitude. Lilithmon growled before she spread her wings as well and followed the dragon into the air. "You want an aerial battle? Fine by me," Lilithmon smirked before taking a deep breath. "Phantom pain." And with a screech she released a black cloud of data-destroying mist. Doragorman roared and released a shockwave that parted the cloud and granted him access to her form. With a powerful motion of his wings, the final enemy rocketed towards Lilithmon and lashed out with a ferocious slash with his right hand, but Lilithmon ducked only to have a knee meet her face, sending her upwards slightly. But she recovered quickly enough to twist her body as she prevented herself from being impaled, the blade on the tip of the dragon Digimon's tail. Growling, Lilithmon struck forth with a punch and smirked as she made contact, sending the dragon skidding along the air before she followed up with a left hook to the face, causing the Biomerge Digimon to grunt in pain. She then spun and crashed the heel of her boot against the dragon's chin before following up with an elbow strike to the muzzle. Doragorman clutched his nose, but was relieved from doing so as Lilithmon released a rapid 5-punch combo to the stomach and then bending her knees to build momentum as she shot back up and successfully slammed a powerful palm strike to the chin. She smirked as she heard the wonderful sound of teeth clacking together from the force of her strike before finishing her attack off with a flip and a powerful axe kick to the head, sending Doragorman spiraling down to the ground with an ear-shattering boom. Dust and dirt flew, forming a cloud that obscured her vision, but the Sin of Lust felt rather proud. Only a few minutes as a mega and that dragon has already been defeated. Pathetic, she thought. However, her thoughts of victory were quickly destroyed as the cloud parted and Doragorman flew out of it. The dragon released a bestial roar towards Lilithmon that caused a shockwave to strike at her from the force. "Is that all you got? It felt like you were tapping me. Well then." The Biomerge Digimon chuckled darkly. "Let me show you how my attacks feel." Doragorman flew towards Lilithmon, who raised her arms to block the rather powerful downward strike from Doragorman's slash, causing her flesh to tear from her bone and revealing it as it was being healed. The force of the strike, however, was more than enough to break through the demon lord's guard and thus leave her wide open. Doragorman clenched his hands into fists and then caused friction between his claws to smother them in orange-yellow flames once more. He crashed a powerful fiery attack to the stomach before following up with a left punch, causing the demon lord to double over in pain as she felt the wind knocked out of her, and the burning sensation from the strikes only made it that much worse. Doragorman followed up with an elbow strike to the shoulder, a delightful crack reaching the dragon's ears before he pivoted to he behind her, and followed up with a slash that raked down her back, leaving 5 slash marks along that part of her body. The dragon continued to pummel his opponent as he released a punch to the face, and then a powerful kick to the ribs, sending her skidding along the air before she was stopped when she felt something thick and rather hard hit her in the stomach, later finding out as she was careening through the air that it was the Mega Level's tail that had struck her. "How? He's too strong. How is he so strong?" she mentally shouted to herself. She righted herself only to find her vision filled with the image of a dragon's maw. "Dragon Fist!" Doragorman roared as he crashed the attack into her face in the form of an uppercut, sending her higher up into the sky. He followed up after her before his speed increased to near unbelievable levels, his skull positioned to strike. "Dorujin!" The steel-scaled dragon yelled as his skull seemed to become as hard as a diamond, impacting with Lilithmon's stomach. Lilithmon screamed in pain and bile. Saliva and blood all came flowing from her mouth from that one strike. Doragorman then grabbed Lilithmon by her throat and repeatedly punched her in the face before he let her go and slashed across her chest, tearing through the fabric and leaving sections of her ample bosom visible. But Doragorman was too busy fighting to let the perversions of his human half, Naruto, get in the way before he lashed out with a powerful upward kick to the chin and then performed a palm strike, only with his claws pointing outwards, so it was more of a claw strike rather than a palm strike. The 5 claws impaled themselves into the demon lord's skin and tore through her flesh before the claws were painfully and forcefully ripped out as he performed an uppercut to send her higher upwards. He followed after with a few powerful flaps of his wings and then flipped and crashed his heavy tail down onto her head, hitting her with the flat side of the blade on its tip, sending her falling at speeds that caused the wind from the air resistance to drown out her hearing until the sound of wind was replaced with an ear-shattering crash as her body met the harsh earth. Doragorman growled as he crossed his arms in front of him, calling upon the energy of the digicore of the dragon within him. The aura of steel silver and sapphire blue that surrounded his body increased in size, taking on the image of a large reptilian beast, and then the dragon uncrossed his arms forcefully as the energy around him exploded outwards for all to see before he dived down like a comet of blue and silver. A/N. Imagine when he opened the 5 gates and he was coated in a green aura, except imagine it with Doragorman and a blue-silver aura with a mixture of Natsu when he went Dragon Force mode after absorbing Ether Ion. The Biomerge Digimon roared as loud as the wind that met his ears. Time slowed down for Lilithmon as her purple eyes met the golden eyes of the Digimon that would end her life. Only one thought crossed her mind before the attack met her. Curse you, Lucemon, for having me die a second time. Brave metal! Doragorman roared, putting all his body and soul into the attack, before making impact with the ground and Lucemon causing a large explosion. Lilithmon screamed loudly as her body was being disintegrated by the DG core of the dragon. Her body was ripped of its synthesized proteins as it became red data flakes, making her become a mere wireframe pattern before that too disintegrated into red flakes of data. A bright light of blue and silver formed from the attack before it died down, and the only thing standing was Doragorman, who released a powerful roar of victory. Doragorman panted before turning away from the spot where Lilithmon had once lay and flew out of the crater he had made. That was for Ryudaman, the mega-level Digimon stated. Gallantmon and Beelzemon clashed, both trying to overpower the other as they pushed against each other, but due to the force Gallantmon was pushing with, the Royal Knight was victorious as his holy shield, Aegis, crashed into Beelzemon's masked face. Beelzemon stumbled backwards and shook his head to remove the dizziness he felt, only to have it return with a vengeance, as Gallantmon swung his lance and Gram smashed into the side of the Demon Lord of Gluttony's head, sending the raven-winged Mega to the ground. Rolling with the fall, Beelzemon climbed back to his feet and then quickly sidestepped a forward thrust from Gram before jumping and flipping in the air in order to crash his boots into Gallantmon's face. The Royal Knight stumbled backwards before Beelzemon took out his 2 pistols from where he always stored them and fired twice. Double impact. The bullets flew through the air, but Gallantmon raised Aegis and deflected them with a resounding capwing. Beelzemon continued to fire his bullets rapidly before putting them away after realizing they were having no effect. However, Aegis shone and reverted into a hand before punching the Sin of Gluttony hard in the face, sending him skidding back. Gallantmon then thrust Gram out and from him as the lance was suddenly surrounded by a bright golden light. Saber shot! The red and white knight shouted as a beam of the same golden light shot forth. Beelzemon quickly ducked beneath the attack only to hear a resounding boom from the resulting explosion and gritted his teeth. How dare those bakas grow stronger? They can't be stronger than me. They can't! Beelzemon roared as blood pounded in his ears. Beelzemon rushed forth and crashed his fist against Gallantmon's shield face. Having raised Aegis to protect himself, Gallantmon countered by pushing the Demon Lord back, and then his lance coated itself with blue sparks of lightning. Beelzemon, feeling the power coming from Gram, kicked Gallantmon in the chin before following up with a harsh elbow to the chest before spinning and slamming a roundhouse kick to the side of the head, and resulted in Gallantmon falling to the ground. Gallantmon's pupils dilated as the slight viral nature from Gilman broke through, and then the Royal Knight kicked Beelzemon in the shin. Gallantmon then performed a cat spring to bring himself to his feet, while also simultaneously crashing his heels into Beelzemon's stomach. You should never try to kick Amon while he's down, Gallantmon said before he raised his electrically charged lance once more, and then stabbed it forth as Beelzemon stood up. Lightning joust! An arc of lightning shot forth from the tip of the lance, and Beelzemon barely had time to blink before white-hot pain exploded on his stomach area, sending him flying through the air. Beelzemon roared in pain before spreading his wings, but he spasmed slightly due to his data being messed up from the shock. The Sin of Gluttony growled before flying through the air and dropped down a few feet from Gallantmon, and in doing so, slammed his fist into the earth, and stood back up with a boulder the size of a small car in his hand and threw it at the Royal Knight, who was knocked back by the blow. Beelzemon then rushed forth and slammed a right hook to the rib area of Gallantmon, causing a slight dent to form in the armor. Gallantmon grunted in pain as he tried to raise his shield, but Beelzemon raised his leg high into the air and crashed it down on the shoulder of the arm that held Aegis, sending it back down. Gallantmon swung Gram wildly to drive Beelzemon back, but on the first swing Beelzemon ducked before catching the second one and pulled Gallantmon towards him before a dark aura surrounded his form. The digital hazard formed on his gloved hand, and Beelzemon smirked at the rise in power before punching the armored warrior in the face, sending him flying through the air and crashing through a boulder. The Demon Lord pulled out his guns once more and fired. Double shot! The chrome Digi's bullets flew through the air, breaking the sound barrier before impacting with Gallantmon's rising form, sending the red and white Digimon back and leaving 2 dents in his armor. Gallantmon's golden eyes filled themselves with fury and seemed to glow before he called upon Aegis into his hands and through the shield. The defensive piece of chrome Digis suddenly turned on the offensive as it smacked Beelzemon in the face and then flew through the air. Gallantmon jumped and flew towards it, catching it in mid-air and bonded it with his arm once more before dropping down and stabbing his lance into the ground. Saber shot. The golden light erupted from the lance once more before leaving a large gap in the ground as it moved from Gallantmon to Beelzemon and slammed into the Demon Lord. The raven-winged Digimon flipped in the air before rolling and dodging another saber shot. Lightning joust. The red and white knight stabbed forth with his lance and Graham released a powerful burst of lightning from its tip. Beelzemon, knowing he couldn't dodge and rather wouldn't risk getting hit with one of those again. He channeled the energy of the digital hazard into his arms and held them out in front of him and stopped the attack. Gallantmon looked in shock as his attack was redirected. Beelzemon then took to the skies in order to perform an aerial strike, but Gallantmon could also fly as well and flew after the Demon Lord. The two duked it out for a while in the sky. Beelzemon tried to pummel the knight only for his armor and Aegis to stop most of them, but Gallantmon got in his few blows with Graham having managed to stab Beelzemon through the left shoulder and rendered the arm useless. The two combatants separated and were tired as hell, but as they refused to back down, Beelzemon channeled the power of the digital hazards into his shotguns, not noticing as they transformed themselves to look more menacing than they already were, their chrome and black colors changing to a deep violet with a black imprint of the digital hazard held in the beak of a raven. He pointed them at Gallantmon before firing. Blackwing impact? Yelling the name of his new attack, 2 violet and black colored bullets flew out of the guns with trails of energy following behind them before they morphed into 2 black wings that were attached to the avatar of a raven. Gallantmon could feel the power from the attack, and he was quite far away from the attack. Gallantmon took a deep breath before raising Aegis, and then the golden arrow-shaped symbols on the shield glowed bright, lighting up in a clockwise manner before they all began to shine. The red symbol in the middle of the shield began to shine as well before the light focused into the center of the shield. Shield of the Just. Gallantmon released a beam of light that rocketed through the air and created a devastating shockwave as the two attack collided. The raven avatar of the Blackwing impact let out a screech as it tried to push through, and Gallantmon grunted in effort as he tried to hold his own. "Don't back down to Catman. We can win this," Gallantmon spoke. Takato was looking tired as he floated in his sea of golden yellow data. "He hurt Jeri and killed Leomon. We can't lose to someone like Beelzemon. We can't," Takato roared. Gallantmon let out a yell as he put whatever remaining energy into his attack, and the blast of white light broke through, shredding the raven and then crashed into Beelzemon. The Demon Lord howled in pain before the light released a devastating amount of energy, nearly blinding the Tamers who were watching from below. Jeri looked up as the light as it began to die down, and saw the raven-winged Digimon smoking from the attack before he plummeted to the ground, causing the ground to crack from his impact with it. Gallantmon panted as he floated down to the ground. Jeri stood up as she saw the look in Royal Knight's eyes as he walked towards the sin of gluttony. Gallantmon leaned on his lance as he used Graham to hobble towards Beelzemon. Upon reaching the bird-masked Mega, the knight raised Graham and aimed it at Beelzemon's head. "You've hurt many Digimon, Beelzemon, and you also killed my friend's partner, and with him, her spirit. As a royal knight, I cast judgment upon thee, and thy judgment shall be death." Gallantmon thrust Graham forth until, "Stop!" Caught off guard by the sudden outburst, Gallantmon missed Beelzemon's head by a few inches. Looking up, both Knight and Demon Lord spotted the brown-haired partner of Leomon with tears in her eyes. "Please, no more fighting. Gallantmon, Takato, please stop." She fell to her knees and the tears rolled down her cheeks. Gallantmon's eyes widened. "Jeri." The sound of a large explosion filled the air before everyone saw a large dragon of energy plummet to the earth and cause said explosion. A dome of silvery blue energy formed before it died down after a few seconds. A few more moments passed before a lone figure flew out of the blast site. It was Doragorman, and he sped towards the rest of the Tamers before touching down. "What's happening here?" the final enemy asked before his golden eyes looked at Jeri, Gallantmon and Beelzemon. "Oh, not this scenario again." Naruto's voice came through as the blonde shinobi's mind was filled with the image of when he and Sasuke fought on the hospital roof. And Sakura was about to run in between his Rasengan and the Uchiha's Chidori, nearly killing herself had Kakashi not shown up. "Please, I don't want to see another friend I care about bloody their hands for me. Please, Takato, don't." The scene was rather awkward as the other Tamers and their partners wondered what Takato's choice would be. Gallantmon closed his eyes and sighed before removing his lance from the ground, and then the weapons glowed and Aegis and Gram were replaced with Gallantmon's regular hands. Very well, but Jeri, know that this was your choice. Gallantmon jumped over to the others. Don't worry, Gallantmon, Takato. Besides, I wouldn't want you to kill Beelzemon either, yet Doragoramon said with a toothy grin. The others looked in shock. Naruto, I mean Doragoramon, why wouldn't you want Beelzemon dead? Henry asked. Yeah dude, I mean he killed Lemon, Kazu added. Doragoramon smirked before walking towards the demon lord of gluttony. Where's Lilithmon, where's Lust? The raven-winged Mega asked. She's dead, but I need you to do something for me so that you wouldn't have to suffer the same fate. Open the void to your stomach, Beelzemon, and the others couldn't believe what they just heard. And Nanny? They all exclaimed. Doragoramon looked at Beelzemon's eyes. Do it, or risk a fiery death, backing up his threat as he held his flaming claws up to Beelzemon's face. The sin of gluttony scrambled to his feet before nodding and then turning away from the dragon. He opened the void to his stomach. The portal formed and Doragoramon slammed his claws down into the earth to anchor himself before picking up a rock that was about to get away. Doragoramon held up a claw and scratched at it, and nodded in satisfaction before blowing away the excess dust and then throwing the rock into Beelzemon's stomach. With a nod of his head, Beelzemon took Doragoramon's cue and then shut off the portal. What did you do that for? He asked. Doragoramon grinned. The embodiment of the DG core of the dragon suddenly glowed with a silvery blue light before the light separated and turned into the purple-furred dragon and the blonde shinobi. We were just telling a friend that he can come home, the two Biomerged individuals replied. Gallantmon was surrounded by a golden-yellow light before separating into Takato and Gilman. Awesome, we're us again, Takato said with satisfaction. Beelzemon then turned to the group before groaning as he took a step towards the group of tamers, Jeri and the Digimon. The group prepared to continue the fight, but deadpanned when Beelzemon's eyes rolled up into his skull and then he fell to his knees. He began to hack and cough. This continued for a few minutes before there was a bright flash of blue and red, and suddenly the portal to Beelzemon's stomach forcefully opened up once more, and then a flash of golden light shot into the sky. The golden light crashed down near the group. Naruto and Doraemon smirked. So did you get our message? Naruto asked. A familiar chuckle greeted the ears of the shinobi and the ex-antibody Digimon. Of course. Though did you have to throw a rock? That really hurt. A blond man walked out from the smoke cloud that resulted from his impact. The others looked in shock as they saw what appeared to be another human, but the glint of silver beneath the being's gloves told them otherwise, since obviously it doesn't shine like that. Naruto-kun, who is that? Rika asked. Doru-kun, he seems to be quite familiar with you and Naruto. Gatomon asked her reptilian boyfriend. Naruto and Doraemon stood next to the 6-foot-tall Digimon. Guys, meet Alchomon, pedestal of the catalyst. Calumon sighed in relief as he finally climbed out of the hole that Zhuqiaomon had dropped him in, but groaned as he found that the top of the hole was still a long ways up. Phew, that was close, and those red bubbles didn't help either since they kept making rocks disappear. The cream-puffed Digimon commented before turning around and spotted a red bubble. The bubble continued to float up until it reached a rock and disintegrated that part of the rock. Soon another bubble followed and another, and another. Calumon gulped and then spotted a nearby ledge that spiraled up and led to the top of the hole. It might take a while, but I guess I gotta walk up and away. Calumon made a whoosh sound with his mouth as he began to run along the ledge that was miraculously wide enough for his small body to fit upon. Unknown to the light of Digivolution, a powerful force was stirring and was the source of those red bubbles. A low gurgling growl-like sound was heard as more bubbles began to surface. Chaos was rising at Zhuqiaomon's palace. So you're like a master of magic? Kazu asked. Alchomon shook his head as he led the group of tamers, Digimon and Jeri to the entrance of Zhuqiaomon's palace. No. He paused in his stride and turned around to the others, but more to Kazu. Alchemy is much more complex than magic. That and magic is not as powerful as alchemy unless used by a master. For you see, magic requires using only the energy within you to cast the spells, whilst alchemy uses the energy within the earth along with your internal energy, thus making my alchemy attacks stronger. Kazu nodded in understanding before he noticed Alchomon was looking over him. Alchomon, something wrong? Henry asked as he held Susie's hand. What's wrong with that girl? He asked, pointing his gloved hand at Jeri, who was latching onto Takato as they walked. Her partner was killed by Beelzemon, a Leomon. Rika answered. Everyone looked downcast, until Henry and Terriermon looked at each other in surprise. Kyuso, he cursed. Henry, what does that word mean? The little 6-year-old girl asked. Henry cursed again, in his mind though. You'll learn when you're older. Anyways, guys, I completely forgot with all the fighting going on, but Terriermon and I were able to save some of Leomon's data before it was disintegrated, Henry exclaimed as he held up his green Democrat Arkansas. Everyone's eyes widened and Jeri looked up as her head was buried in Takado's side. Leomon. He can never come back. He's gone forever. Jeri's depression seemed to worsen. Everyone gathered around Henry and looked at his screen. Are you sure this is Leomon? Kazu asked. It looks more like a tornado of a whole mess of crap. Alchomon walked up to Henry and looked at the Diarch's screen. On it there was a tornado of swirling blue data, wild and untamed as it had no physical form, not even bonding to form a DG egg. Strange. Usually when a Digimon dies there is a chance that whatever leftover data then didn't dissolve could be reformed into a DG egg, and yet, this volume of data hasn't. The blonde-haired alchemist spoke. I can release the data, but I don't know what would happen if I do, Henry pointed out. This was indeed a dilemma, but Alchomon merely smirked. The alchemy using Mega looked at the Tamers and their Digimon. Release him. I can perform a quick enough transmutation to change Leomon's remaining data into a DG egg. Although, there will be a chance that Leomon's baby form will not remember Jeri or any of you, but then again there is also the chance that whatever memories that are stored within Leomon's data, they will return to him should he digivolve from his baby form into his champion form, Alchomon hypothesized. Jeri-chan, look, you got a chance to get Leomon back, the goggle-wearing Tamer smiled. Jeri's brown eyes looked at Henry's Democrat Arkansas screen before she reached into her pocket and looked at her own pale yellow one. Her sign as a Tamer. Without Leomon, she was nothing but a burden, but if there was a chance to get Leomon back then. But what if Leomon doesn't come back the same way? What if he doesn't remember me and he wouldn't even become my partner anymore? Jeri's eyes lined with tears once more, but she felt a hand on her shoulder and she looked up to see Takada looking at her with a toothy grin. When this DG egg becomes Leomon, I know that he will remember you and still be your partner. Don't worry, the yellow Democrat Arkansas wielding Tamer looked up in awe at her friend and she felt the blood rush to her cheeks as she blushed. Arigato, Takado, and with that she looked up with a slightly determined face and nodded. Do it. Henry looked at Alchomon and they nodded to each other. Henry pressed a button and an option box appeared on the screen. You have stored digital data in your Democrat Arkansas. Would you like to release this data? Yes. And no. The Tamer of Terriermon clicked yes, and suddenly the green Democrat Arkansas shook wildly in his hands as the data flooded out of the screen. Seems you stored a bit more of Leomon's data than you thought, Naruto whistled. Alchomon then watched until all the data came out of the Democrat Arkansas, and when that happened he quickly channeled his energy and clapped his hands. The red cloak-wearing Digimon's hands glowed with a faint blue before touching the cloud of similarly colored data. Transmutation! The blonde Mega yelled, and then there was a bright flash of blue, and then everyone watched as the data began to swirl and condense. It took on the appearance of Naruto's Rasengan, only it was about the size of an Utama Rasengan, and more oval-shaped. The condensed data was then covered in an eggshell that was covered with mostly orange, but had a single black stripe surrounding the circumference of the egg. The egg was then caught by the alchemic Digimon who handed it to Jeri. Your Leomon is fine, but make sure you have him digivolve along the right path because it is a known fact that baby Digimon have many different rookie forms to digivolve into. Jeri nodded as she held the egg and a piece of the hole that formed in her heart began to become whole. Arigato, Alchomon. I can't think of any way to repay you. Alchomon raised his hand saying, repayment is not needed. You and your friends helped in defeating Beelzemon and getting me out of his stomach. I think it should be the other way around. The Tamers and the Digimon then walked across the bridge and stopped at the entrance to Zhuqiaomon's palace. Well, here we are, the old bird's house, Naruto sighed. The Tamers walked up to the door. Suzy looked up at the large black and red gates. Henry, this place looks scary, she trembled, hugging her brother's leg. It's okay, Suzy, Lopman, Terriermon and I will keep you safe, the blue-haired Asian boy said, kneeling down to his sister's height. Suzy smiled slightly and nodded before firmly grabbing her tamed Digimon like she was a teddy bear. Suzy, you're choking me, Lopman gasped as she tried to undo the iron grip of Suzy's arm around her neck. However, as they walked towards the door, two figures dropped down. One was the ever-playful, yet stupid monkey, Makuramon, the monkey Deva, and the other was a blue dog-like creature, its blue skin looking like armor. Around its neck was a string of purple beads along with a dark violet neckerchief. On the upper parts of its limbs where one would locate the shoulders and upper thighs, the Digimon had golden platings with the kanji for dog in black imprinted on said platings. Its tail looked on the appearance of swirling wind to due to appearance of the lengthy hair that made it. Its teeth and claws were a shining white, and its pure red eyes stared into the ones of the Tamers. Kenta had already taken out his rose-colored Democrat Arkansas and scanned the dog-looking creature. After a minute, The holographic image along with the information on the Digimon came up. Catcherman, ultimate level. He is the dog Deva and serves the sovereign Biomerge. His sense of justice is strong, and it is unsatisfied when it can't make something clear in black and white. When all of its comrades are quarreling, it will sometimes serve as a moderator or presiding judge, changing into the Bao Chui, which is itself as a gigantic hammer, and passing judgment over guilt and innocence. His attacks are Bao Chui and Howl of the Heavens Kenta Red, so the two remaining Devas show themselves, Rika said with an arrogant look. Renamon, let's go. Rika-chan, why do you get to have the fun? You got to fight Lilithmon. Now Renamon and I will fight the monkey Deva. Terriermon and I will handle the dog. Hey, why can't we help? Kazu and Kenta exclaimed. The fiery-haired and Asian tamers looked at the two novices and shrugged. Kazu, you're with me, Rika said. I'm an offensive person and Gallantmon has better power moves. Kenta, Regeneration attacks have shown to vary, sometimes being defensive, and sometimes being able to immobilize and heal. I need you to use your attacks where the situation calls for it, understood? Kenta nodded to Henry and he and Regeneration gave a salute. I sir, the glasses-wearing Tamer said. Alright, this shouldn't take too long, Rika commented as she took her place next to Renamon. My chakra has been replenished, and now we can fight together. Kazu, when you see an opening, have Gallantmon attack Makuramon. Gotcha, the visor-wearing Tamer replied as he held his purple Democrat Arkansas. Renamon and Rika rushed towards Makuramon, who smirked. The ultimate level watched as Renamon jumped into the air and crossed her arms in front of herself. Diamond Storm. A white circle of energy formed before the energy crystallized into diamond-like shards before rocketing towards the monkey Deva. Makuramon dodged the shards using his amazing flexibility, and reflexes only feel a searing heat. He turned around to be greeted with the sight of Rika breathing out a fireball. Katon, Gakakyu no Jutsu! And the grand fireball rocketed forth. Makuramon quickly jumped and backflipped over the attack only to hear a whistling sound. Guardian Barrage! Gallantmon yelled as he fired the two missiles from his armed cannons. Makuramon's eyes widened before he was struck and his body sent skidding backwards, right into Rika's waiting foot. Konoha Senpu/Leaf Hurricane! And she spun, crashing her heel against the back of the monkey Deva. Renamon then appeared next to the flying money and ran alongside his flying form before twisting and her leg hit the monkey Deva in the ribs. Makuramon flipped in the air, allowing himself to land on his feet before raising his arms to block a kick to the face from Renamon. Pushing her back, Makuramon knocked the blonde Kitsune off balance before punching her in the gut, and then spun to whip his tail at Renamon's snout, causing her to yelp in pain before she was brutally kicked in the stomach, sending her back. Makuramon held out his hand and a glowing white orb formed. Primal Orb! And with that he threw the glowing white spheroid at Renamon, and a small explosion resulted. Makuramon smirked, but his look of joy was immediately replaced with a scowl as he saw Gallantmon standing in front of the downed Kitsune, the bright yellow shield of Orgreymon in front of the steel warrior. Are you alright, Renamon? The champion level asked. Ramon nodded. Hi, Argiato. Renamon stood to her feet before looking at Makuramon before blurring out his field of vision. Digimodify, power activate! Kazu yelled, swiping the card. Warning laser! The iron-clad Digimon's eyes glowed crimson before he released a powerful beam of energy from them. The concentrated beam of light cut through the ground like a knife through butter before reaching Makuramon. The monkey Deva acted quickly and cartwheeled to dodge, and then noticed movement out of the corner of his eyes and ducked underneath punch to the head from Rika, only to have the fiery-haired girl go with the momentum of her punch to flip over Makuramon and land on his other side, and then attacking with another punch that crashed into the monkey Deva's face, sending him. Rika flashed through hand sign. Katon, Hausenka no Jutsu/Fire Style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. She released multiple miniature fireballs from her mouth and Makuramon raised his arms, but still howled in pain as his arms took the brunt of the damage and burned off a good portion of his arm fur. He screeched like the primate he was, only to be silenced as Renamon appeared beneath him, and then slamming a strong uppercut to his chin. Power Paw! The ghostly blue flames surrounding her paw added more pain to the monkey Deva as he was followed after into the air as another uppercut struck him in the chin. Renamon dropped back down only for Gallantmon to catch her. The two nodded silently to each other before Gallantmon stretched his arm back before hurling Renamon at Makuramon. Igniting all four of her paws with ghostly blue flame, Renamon unleashed a deadly two-punch combo to the face before spinning and slamming a double axe kick to the primate's head and sent him careening down towards the earth. Digimodify, Metaldremon's Giga Blaster. Kazu swiped the card just as Rika finished flashing through hand signs and ended on the Tora sign. Katon, Ryuka no Jutsu! She roared as she released blazing trail of fire that morphed into a dragon's head. Giga Blaster! Monodramon yelled as his arm cannons grew larger before firing twin missiles that had shark-like faces painted on them. The missiles flew over the fire dragon, and then the two attack met the downed Makuramon before causing a large explosion. Makuramon's body was seen flying into the chasm of lava beneath the bridge, but luckily he was deleted before he could die a fiery death. "Nice job there, newbie," Rika said to Kazu. Kazu smirked. "Not too bad yourself." However, their victory was cut short as they heard a scream. Henry quickly flashed through hand signs and slammed his hands on the ground. "Doton, Dorihiki no Jutsu." The Asian Tamer caused an earth to become erected, but Catcherman changed himself into the treasure hammer and broke through the wall like it was paper. After breaking through, Catcherman reverted to his normal form only to have Terriermon appear in his face, a tornado of emerald wind surrounding his fist. "My own techniques, tornado punch!" Terriermon yelled, slamming the wind-empowered fist into Catcherman's face. Catcherman barked in pain before recovering from Terrierman's enhancements of the Terrier Tornado before lashing out with his tail, smacking the smaller Digimon into the ground. Terriermon flipped and used his long ears to stop his fall and regain his footing before Henry jumped into the air with a chakra-enhanced jump, and since the chakra was already in his legs, he spun and lashed out with a kick. Catcherman yelped as he didn't expect the human to join in the fight, and was sent to the ground as Henry dropped down. "Annoying human," the dog Deva growled before taking a deep breath. "Howl of the heavens!" A loud howl escaped the armored canine's mouth and caused the earth crack as the sound waves shot forth. The waves flew through the air only to be stopped as a heart-shaped barrier formed in front of Henry and Terriermon. "Pretty heart," Marine Angement said before the barrier evaporated from existence as the dog's howl ended. Catcherman growled and then charged like a raging bull. Jumping into the air, the dog Deva flipped and changed into the Baochui. And the treasure hammer struck down with amazing force, creating a shockwave that sent the two tamers and their Digimon skidding backwards. Henry then formed hand signs and slammed his hands on the ground. "Doton, Dosokanowarita no Jutsu / Earth Style, Earth Shatter Jutsu." A large crack opened up in the earth, nearly causing Catcherman to fall into the lava below had he not jumped from wall to wall of the trench and made it to safety. "Terrier Tornado!" The rookie Digimon spun and released a large tornado of green wind and struck the ultimate level in the face, but it barely did any damage. "Bunny Blast!" Terriermon didn't fire multiple energy bullets, but rather charged up the energy in his mouth and fired one large blast, the size of a basketball. Catcherman was hurt this time as a bruise formed on the side of his face where the attack struck and exploded, sending the dog Deva backwards. The canine Digimon flipped in the air to land on his feet before releasing an ear-shattering howl. "Howl of the heavens!" The attack released the sound waves, and this time they hit their mark. Terriermon and Henry were sent flying, but were quickly caught on a rubbery-like heart that Marine Angement formed to break their fall. The heart then smothered the two and healed their wounds formed from the sound waves. "Arigato Kenta, Marine Angement." "No problem." And Henry, "Now let me try an attack." Kenta held his rose-colored Democrat Arkansas and swiped a card that he pulled from his pocket. "Digimodify, Garuramon's Howling Blaster," Kenta yelled. Marine Angement felt a cold and burning feeling in her gut before taking a deep breath. "Howling Blaster." The ice-blue flames rocketed towards the dog Deva, freezing the ground as it made its way towards Catcherman. The dog Deva's red eyes widened before he reacted and ducked, avoiding the attack, and then took the chance to go for a counter-strike. He ran and then jumped into the air. Baochui, Hurricane Punch. The wind around Terrierman's body increased as he initially formed a Terrier Tornado before directing the winds around his paw and went forth to punch the cannon's lights out. The two attacks clashed, but even though Terrierman's attack was strong for a rookie Digimon, it was no match for the ultimate level Deva, and Terriermon let out a loud scream of pain as he was crushed into the ground, creating a small crater from his impact from the Baochui. "Terriermon!" Henry cried out in distress and ran towards his partner. His blood boiled as he looked at the dog Deva as he reformed into his animal form. Flashing through hand signs, Henry performed the strongest Doton Jutsu that Naruto managed to teach him. "Doton, Doriyuden no Jutsu." Henry slammed his feet on the ground and then the earth cracked before a large dragon of rock and earth formed. The dragon's yellow eyes glowed before it released a roar and sped towards the dog Deva. "Howl of the heavens!" The dog Deva cried out, but Henry quickly formed an earth wall to take the hit for his dragon, and then the reptile of earth smashed through the battered wall, and Catcherman's eyes widened in fear as the last thing he saw was the pair of golden-yellow eyes of the earth dragon. The dragon roared before making contact with Catcherman and sent the canine down into the ground and created a nicely sized crater. Calumon then whined like a puppy before exploding into red flakes of data and then being burned as a lava spout erupted from the river of the molten rock below the bridge that led to the palace. Henry quickly ran towards his downed partner just as Rika, Kazu, and their partners ran over to them. "Henry, what happened?" we heard a scream, and then Rika's eyes widened as she saw the bruised form of Terriermon. The others ran up to Henry's side and then looked at his angry and sad face. "Kyuso. If only I was fast enough," Henry gritted his teeth. "It's not your fault, Henry." Everyone looked to see Terriermon's eyes opening, and then he coughed out the dust from his mouth. "Momentai." "Yeah, Momentai," Henry smirked before looking at Naruto. "Do you have a card that could heal him?" Naruto thought for a while and then reached into his deck case and looked through his cards. His eyes rapidly looked through his cards before he came upon one. "Here we go, Gallantmon." The white-furred feline nodded and then walked towards Terriermon, but was stopped by Suzy. The 6-year-old girl looked up at Naruto holding her Democrat Arkansas. "Naruto, can I try a card please?" she asked. Naruto smirked and patted the girl on the head before handing her the card. "Sure, and keep that card. I'm sure you'll find it very useful," the blonde Shinbo said with a foxy grin. Suzy smiled and her eyes shone before she looked at Lopman. The brown, tri-horned version of Terriermon nodded as Suzy swiped the card. Now what?" she asked. The tamer's present sweat dropped. "Maybe you need a demonstration first," Naruto said, taking the card from her, and then he swiped the card. "Digimodify, Angewoman's Heaven's Charm," he yelled as the card scanned through the bronze-colored Democrat Arkansas for Gallantmon. Gallantmon looked at Lopman and Suzy. "You guys understand what to do now?" she asked. Suzy nodded and jumped as high as she could and managed to snatch the card out of Naruto's hand and repeated his action. "Digimodify, Angewoman's Heaven's Charm," the 6-year-old yelled. Lopman's paws glowed gold just as Gallantmon's did before the two Digimon held the holy energy over Terriermon. Naruto then took out Fanglongmon's scale and held it over the downed rookie. "This should speed up the process," he stated, and true to his word, the light energy of Fanglongmon allowed the light-based technique to increase its rate of healing and Terriermon was healed in a matter of seconds. "Wow, that's some good stuff," Terriermon said as he pushed the sharp scale away from his face. Naruto put the scale back in his weapons pouch, and then the group, led by Alchomon, pushed open the doors to the Phoenix of the South's lair. The doors creaked as they opened and the Digimon and Tamers were shocked at what was before them. The room was huge, albeit it being the only room in the whole palace. Its walls and floor were a deep crimson mixed with hues of burnt orange. Then in the center of the room there was a large throne made entirely of flame, and in those flames sat Zhuqiaomon, his orange eyes staring through the mask like feathers that covered them. "Ah, young shinobi, you have returned. How delightful," the Phoenix said with pure sarcasm. Naruto's and Doraemon's eyes narrowed as they took the lead. "The feeling is mutual," the Tamer and Digimon replied. "Now what do you want?" "It's not a what we want, it's a who. We want Calumon back now," the blonde Shinbo demanded. Zhuqiaomon screeched, and the throne of flames increased in size and turned from orange-yellow to light blue mixed with white. "Do not dare to demand anything from me, boy. You know not of the power I hold." "I've had a glimpse of it, rather ferocious," the blonde replied as held up the blazing helix card he received from the sovereigns during his first time in the digital world. Zhuqiaomon's eyes narrowed. "Ah yes, I forgot. Fanglongmon gave you pieces of our power to you," the bird spoke before rising to his feet. Alchomon stepped forth. "Old bird, long time no see," the blonde said with a wave. Zhuqiaomon's eyes widened as the DG cores around him spun. That voice, the Phoenix of the South, turned to glare at the blonde alchemist. Alchomon the bird drawled out the name like he never even wanted to utter it. "Nice to see you too," the red cloak-wearing Digimon replied. "Now then, give these gakis their friend back or we'll have to take it by force." "You think you can take me on?" "Foolish Digimon, you may be stronger than most mega levels than I have seen, but you are nowhere near the level of myself and the other sovereigns." "I'll test that theory, but not today. Though I would like to see how these gakis would kick your feathery ass," Alchomon said. "I'll fight too," Terriermon stated. Henry's eyes widened before he stood next to Terriermon. "And oh, you were wounded badly in that battle with Calumon. I mean, look, even though we healed you, you're favoring one leg." Henry was right. Terriermon had been walking and leaning more to his left, meaning he damaged his right leg. "Henry, they say that in order to become stronger, a Tamer and Digimon need to fight together. So choose, Henry. Fight with me or don't fight at all, because either way I will fight." Terriermon's eyes shone with a fire that Henry never saw in them before and gulped. A sigh escaped Henry's mouth. "You guys don't mind if we take a shot, do you?" the blue-haired Tamer asked. The other Tamers stepped back, way back. This caused Henry to sweat drop as he saw them wave. "Have fun," Kazu smiled. Henry's sweat drop grew larger before he turned back to glare at the Phoenix of the South. Ha ha ha, one human and his measly rookie partner. Don't make me laugh, you can never handle me, Zhuqiaomon said, his voice full of overconfidence. We'll see about that. So Henry, you with me or not? Terriermon asked with a smile, already knowing the answer. Henry gripped his Democrat Arkansas, and then the Democrat Arkansas gave off a large flash of green light. You bet the Asian, Tamer replied. Biomerge Digivolution. Terriermon Biomerge too. Henry and Terriermon were enveloped in a shroud of green data as their bodies fused. Terriermon's body expanded and grew to the size of a 3-story building. Terriermon's skin peeled away as his body became coated in armor. His face formed into the face of an adult rabbit of some kind. Long arm and legs formed, all covered with pale white skin before being coated by green armor. Around the wrists, 2 large machine guns rotated before 2 black hands grew from the center of the guns. 2 missile launchers merged with his shoulders, and in each launcher were missile with a rabbit-like face on them. Large armored feet formed, green like the rest of his armor with 3 black claws growing out of them. Around each ankle, a black, studded brace formed. An armored kilt/skirt formed around the large Mega Digimon's waist, being held up by a large black belt, with a white symbol in the center of the kilt. In the center of the chest armor was a small smiley face was imprinted. The newly formed Mega Digimon stamped down on the ground, creating cracks in them. Mega Gargamon. Everyone looked up in shock at the gargantuan, armored rabbit. What was all that the Tamers and Digimon could say? Mega Gargamon looked over himself, and then clenched his fists. Kazu scanned the large Mega and the information, along with its holographic image appear. Mega Gargamon, a Mega-level Digimon. His armor is nearly unbreakable and equals to that of Chrome Digist in terms of hardness. His armor contains multiple compartments, which all contain weapons. His attacks are Gargo Missile and Mega Barrage. Now this is the kind of firepower I'm talking about, Mega Gargamon said with a giddy voice, the voice of Terriermon. Henry floated in his sea of green data and was in awe as he looked through the eyes of the Mega-level Digimon. This is amazing. Maybe this is the same thing Takato and Naruto did, Terriermon. They merged and became the Mega forms of their Digimon. Well, Henry, let's have ourselves from fried chicken, Mega Gargamon said. Henry smirked as he and Mega Gargamon aimed an arm cannon at Zhuqiaomon. Let's, and with that Mega Gargamon's arm cannon fired off a multitude of green laser bullets that flew towards the Sovereign. But the Phoenix merely screeched, and the flames of his throne rose up and stopped the bullets before they even touched him. Very well, prepare to die. Tamer Zhuqiaomon spread his magnificent wings and took flight before releasing a wave of fire from his body, signaled only by a mere flap of his wings. The wave of flame flew towards Mega Gargamon, who simply performed an axe kick and cut the fire in 2, leaving a pair of scorch marks on either side of the floor next to him. Hey Naruto! The biomerged Mega yelled. The blonde nodded. Yeah, Henry, do you think that we could still perform jutsus in this form? Naruto's eyes widened at the prospect but hadn't really given it a thought. I don't know, try it and see if it works. Mega Gargamon nodded before looking at Zhuqiaomon, and then the missiles on his shoulders fired. Gargo Missile. The missile flew through the air, their faces turning into smiles as they were about to impact with Zhuqiaomon. However, the Phoenix simply crossed his wings in front of him before uncrossing them, releasing an arc of fire and knocked the missile off course and exploding into the walls of the palace. Unknown to him, Mega Gargamon was forming a series of hand signs. Please let this work. Doton, Doryuden no Jutsu. Mega Gargamon roared before slamming his large armored foot on the ground. The earth quaked, literally, before a large earth dragon rose from the depths of the palace and roared, its glowing yellow eyes staring at Zhuqiaomon before racing towards the Sovereign of the South. Zhuqiaomon was caught off guard by the sudden use of a move unknown to the Digimon before him that he was struck in the chest and sent plummeting to the ground before causing a large cloud of dust. It worked, Yada! Mega Gargamon jumped for joy, but caused the others to fall down from the shock that carried with the armored rabbit's fall. Suddenly there was a sudden increase in the temperature as Zhuqiaomon rose up from the dust cloud, shaking the rubble off of him. The aura of red that usually surrounded him grew in size. Insolent abomination! How dare you strike me? Zhuqiaomon rose into the air as his power seemingly increased exponentially. Everyone out! Alchomon roared before turning tail and leaving the palace. The other followed, with Mega Gargamon running after them and scooping them up into his hands as the palace of the Sovereign began to come down on top of them. Fire fell from above like rain. Luckily Mega Gargamon's armor was able to prevent any damage to himself or the others. Once making it outside, Mega Gargamon jumped and then unknowingly activated the rocket thrusters on the bottom of his feet and flew a good distance away from the palace. They turned and watched as it came crashing down. You think Zhuqiaomon was crushed in there? Takato asked. We wouldn't think so. For an old bird, he knocked away my attacks like they were nothing, the Biomerge Digimon replied before his assumptions became true as the rubble of the palace exploded outwards, and then a large red avatar in the shape of a phoenix rose from it. The avatar died down, leaving only a small red dot before the dot began to travel towards them. Mega Gargamon rested his friends down before taking to the skies by his rockets. Prepare to die, abomination! Zhuqiaomon screeched before increasing his speed to such a level. Mega Gargamon only saw a red flash before he was struck in the chest, sending him back. But he had managed to grab onto Zhuqiaomon and keep a hold on him. We're not gonna die. Not until we save Calumon. Mega Gargamon punched the holy Digimon in the beak and then crashing a roundhouse kick to the side of the bird's head. Zhuqiaomon steadied himself just in time to see a multitude of compartments open up all over Mega Gargamon's body. Mega Barrage! And with that, bullets, missiles, and all different kinds of ammunition fired from all those compartments. The attack sped towards Zhuqiaomon, who could only widen his orange eyes before he was struck down. With a loud screech, the Sovereign of Fire was sent through the air by the blasts. Luckily, the DG cores that surrounded his body allowed him to come out healed and seemingly unharmed, but if you looked closely you could see the Phoenix was panting from having to take such an amount of energy from one of the DG cores. That's it, playtime is over. Zhuqiaomon let out a screech before speeding towards Mega Gargamon, who fired the missiles on his shoulders that never seemed to run out. Gargo Missile! The two smiling projectiles flew towards the Sovereign, who released a column of flame from his beak and caused the missile to explode in mid-flight before rushing through the resulting smoke cloud and crashing head first into the armored bunny. The Phoenix then grabbed the green armored rabbit and threw him down into the ground and then released a fire blast that sent the mega-level Digimon soaring through the air before once again meeting the harsh, black earth of Zhuqiaomon's homeland. Sonic Zephyr! The talons of the Phoenix's feet suddenly became encased in orange flames before the bird dive-bombed the Biomerge Digimon and struck Mega Gargamon in the chest. That's it, I can't stand by anymore. Let's if I still got it. Alchomon clapped his hands together and then slammed them on the ground. The earth rumbled before a multitude of cannons formed and fired bursts of yellow alchemic energy, and knocked Zhuqiaomon off of Mega Gargamon, who was covered in burns and slash marks. Zhuqiaomon turned to see who had struck him from behind, only to be greeted by a large fist of earth that crashed into his cranium, sending him back down. Alchomon quickly rushed forth and clapped his hands before running his left arm along his right automail arm. The hybrid chrome Digis metal transformed into a blade along the forearm area before he jumped, and everyone was surprised as the 6-foot-tall Digimon slashed at the rising Phoenix, and with a single slash, sent the bird back down. Alchomon then backflipped and clapped him hands before slamming them on the ground once more, and a large titan of earth rose up. Transmutation! Alchomon roared, his red cloak billowing in the wind as the titan walked towards Zhuqiaomon. The Phoenix roared with rage before unleashing an aura of fiery power that knocked the alchemy-made titan back and destroyed it. Zhuqiaomon then took to the skies and concentrated all his rage and fire into his mouth. Blazing Helix! A blast of fire launched from Zhuqiaomon's maw. The twin streams of fire twisted around each other, forming the double helix that gave the attack its name. Alchomon clapped his hands together and placed both hands by his waist, and a bright ball of blue lightning-like energy formed. Alchemic Burst! Alchomon let loose the energy blast, which came out in the form of a lightning bolt and raced to impact with the blazing helix. Suddenly a group of black cumulonimbus clouds formed near the battle, and everyone who was looking at the nearing attacks gaped as they saw lightning launch out of the clouds. Aurora Force! The lightning bolt shot out, morphing into the image of a dragon, and then stopped right between the two attacks between the Alchemy Digimon and the Sovereign of the South, all three canceling each other out. The cumulonimbus clouds diminished only to be replaced by a large white and blue dragon, wrapped in chains, lightning bolts sparking from every part of the mustachioed dragon. The Sovereign Dragon of the East, Azulongmon. Azulongmon/Azulongmon. The two mega-level Digimon gasped. Naruto and Doraemon looked in awe at the still Gargantuan dragon. The aurora force that he used made their card look like a candle, while his looked like a freaking forest fire in comparison. What brings you here? The Phoenix said with annoyance. I heard the commotion all the way from Eastern Quadrant. You really are quite loud. Zhuqiaomon the Dragon of Lightning commented before looking down and seeing the down Mega Gargamon surround himself with green data before reverting back to a dazed Henry and Terriermon. Well, that was fun, Terriermon commented. Are you children and your partners all right? The Great Dragon asked. The Tamers nodded before Azulongmon turned to look at Alchomon. Alchomon, is that really you? Yeah, It has been a while since Zhuqiaomon ate me, the blonde Digimon replied with a toothy grin. Well, it's good to see you again, old friend, but I have business to discuss with these tamers. Of course, besides I have some business to take care of. Azulongmon nodded. When Alchomon mentioned business, it meant he had to go talk with the dragon of the center, Fanglongmon. Alchomon was the only Mega Digimon to ever be able to meet all 5 Digimon gods and strike a friendship with Fanglongmon, which was why he was well known among the 5 gods. Well guys, I gotta get going. I hope you guys succeed in whatever quest you're doing, Alchomon said before clapping his hands and slamming them on the ground. Blue lightning sparked from the earth before a large dragon formed that then carried the alchemy user away from the 2 sovereigns and the tamers. So, Azulongmon? Naruto asked. The dragon of the east nodded to the shinobi. Yes, Naruto, I trust you are those cards we gave you in times of stress, I assume. Of course, the blonde replied with his trademark foxy grin. Now then, the business I wish to discuss with you is concerning the catalyst. I don't see why you don't just leave it here. It's more use to us here than in the real world, the stubborn phoenix spoke. Yes, but the chaos is rising quicker than we expected, and until the catalyst can be used to its full potential, it is as vulnerable as the DG egg that child is carrying. Azulongmon pointed his beard tip at Jeri, who was carrying Leomon's egg. The 2 sovereigns glared at each other, their auras of lightning and fire clashing against one another before they stopped, and then turned back to the tamers. Climb up on my back. I have to take you to the place where the chaos is and hope that maybe through the combined efforts of the Digimon and you humans, we might be able to stop it. If not, slow its resurfacing. The dragon nestles down on the ground and the other climbed atop the gargantuan dragon. I've always wanted to be a dragon rider, Takato said with glee. The other rolled their eyes. Gogglehead Rika said as she leaned back against Naruto, who was sitting behind her. The dragon of the east took to the skies before pausing and turning to the phoenix of the south. Come, Zhuqiaomon, Impmon and Biomerge are waiting for us. The phoenix's harsh orange eyes softened a bit as he sighed. Very well, Azulongmon. But that doesn't mean I'm warming up to humans, earning a few laughs from the others. With Calumon. Calumon sighed as sat down on the large rock that jutted out of the edge of the hole he was climbing out of. As he was walking along the ledge, the red bubbles had disintegrated the rocks that were in jumping distance, and now the little cream puff was stranded in the dark hole with the only light coming from the exit above and the glows of the red data-eating bubbles. I wish I could float up out of here like those pretty bubbles, then I could get out and go see Naruto and Doraemon, and the others. The light of Digivolution sighed. His ears shrank as he became slightly depressed. However, his depression was soon replaced with shock as the ground began to shake from above, shockwaves traveling down the tube-shaped cavern that led to his freedom. What's going on up there? Calumon looked up to see 2 large shadows. Strange, that one looks like a tiger and that one looks like a 2-headed thingy-madoodle. I wonder if they can help me get out of here. Hey, Heliop! The cream puff shouted up at the 2 large shadows. The 2 figures looked down and Calumon immediately stopped screaming as the 2 figures seemed to glare down at him. The tiger-shaped one had 4 glowing yellow eyes and had a white aura surrounding it. The 2-headed one had 2 glowing red eyes on each head and was surrounded by a green aura. Both figures looked angered as they released growls from their throats. Then again, this place doesn't seem so bad. Calumon seemed to think twice. Azulongmon and Zhuqiaomon flew through the air as Kazu and Kenta asked the 2 sovereigns about the digital world. So, Azulongmon, are the original 8 Digidestined from the TV show real? Kazu asked. Which Digidestined do you speak of, child? The large dragon replied with his own question. You know, Tai, Matt, Sora, T.K, Izzy, Carrie, Joe and Mimi, Kazu replied. Azulongmon's eyes widened. Oh yes, those children. Oh, such a nice group they were, although I was too busy protecting the data stones from being destroyed by Black Wargreymon, though they did help to free us when we were imprisoned by the Dark Masters. So how come their digital world is different from this one in the southern quadrant? Kenta asked. Each quadrant of the digital world is ruled by us sovereigns, Zhuqiaomon answered. Although the 4 quadrants create the digital world, there are many different Earths due to the creation of parallel dimensions. As such, we sovereigns used our powers to have such that only a certain parallel Earth could access only one quadrant of the digital world. Well, unless you were caught in the data streams, of course. You seem well versed on the topic. Zhuqiaomon Azulongmon chuckled, causing his passengers to nearly lose their balance on his broad back. The Phoenix of the South grumbled, saying stuff about annoying dragons, and how he should go back to rebuild his palace. We're here, the 2 sovereigns spoke simultaneously. The large dragon and phoenix touched down in front of a large hole in the earth. Surrounding the hole on the left and right, can't really tell with a circular hole, so I'm just giving its sides, were the great tiger of the west and the turtle of the north. There you are, lads, you've nearly missed the show. Abominman's left head spoke. Zhuqiaomon, you mangy bird, what were you thinking trying to kill these young'uns, eh? The right head commented. Zhuqiaomon screeched at the turtle. Now, can't we all just calm down? Biomerge said. Besides, we got bigger problems. The children and their Digimon all climbed off the back of the dragon of the east. But Takato had to help Jeri down so that she wouldn't damage Leomon's DG egg. Gatomon, Renamon, Gardramon, Marine Angemon and Terriermon all looked in shock as they saw the 4 gargantuan Digimon standing before them. The sovereigns gathered in front of the Tamers and the Digimon, but out of respect for the 4, the Digimon name dropped to one knee and crossed one arm in front of their chests. It is an honor to be present before the 4 sovereigns, they all spoke. Gilman was confused, but then he knelt as well. The sovereigns chuckled, except for Zhuqiaomon. I don't see why you couldn't have done that when you met me. Boy, Zhuqiaomon looked at Naruto and Doraemon. I did, Doraemon said. I now arrived in your world. Besides, you were pissed, and besides, ever heard the phrase respect is earned, not gained? Zhuqiaomon the blonde shinobi shot back. The other 3 held in their laughter at the flabbergasted look that was found on the Phoenix's face. Well, that's enough chit-chat. Anyways, we found the catalyst. Zhuqiaomon, how could you place the poor little guy in that dark hole? Biomerge asked. Being the youngest of the 4 sovereigns, he had more understanding of the younger Digimon. Because I need to keep the catalyst in a secluded area. It's not like I'm gonna put him out in the center of Primary Village and put up a neon sign saying HUI I'm the catalyst, train me of my power to use for your own gain, the fiery feathered bird said. Zhuqiaomon has a point, but my friend, the chaos has become attracted to Calumon's power and has been able to locate him. Look. Everyone turned in the direction Azulongmon's masked face turned and looked to see nothing before a few red bubbles of data floated out of the hole. What are those things? Takato asked. Those, my young tamer, are pieces of the chaos. Guys, I think that's the D-Reaper thing Shibumi told us about, Takato said, turning to the others. How can you be so sure, Takato-kun? Jeri asked. Think about it. This thing nearly killed off the Digimon, and right now they're scaring the sovereigns. The most powerful Digimon in the entire digital world, gods of the digital world. If this chaos is the D-Reaper, then we need to stop it, Naruto finished. But how, Naruto-kun? We're only human, albeit we have powers that you trained us to use, but still. Rika looked at her boyfriend. Naruto's sapphire eyes gazed into her violet ones before he turned away from her and looked at Azulongmon. Calumon is in that hole, isn't he? What would make you think that, lad? Impmon asked. You wouldn't brought us all the way out here, and besides, Biomerge just said it a few moments ago. How Zhuqiaomon put Calumon in this secluded place so no one could find him. Hi, it is true that the catalyst is down there, the Dragon of Lightning spoke. But this hole is much too small for us to reach, and Biomerge and Impmon said how they heard Calumon yelling for help. His voice was close, so that meant he was near the mouth of this hole. Due to your small stature, you humans would be more than enough to get in there and grab the catalyst, and hopefully you could also come up with a plan to stop the chaos energy from breaking through, or at least hold it back. We will do what we can, Naruto said. Oh yes, by the way, I found another tamer near here, and I thought it would be helpful to you all if he came to help. The Turtle of the North added. The tamers all turned towards the giant reptile. Oh no, they gasped quietly as Impmon rustled the large tree on his back, and then 2 figures tumbled out of the foliage. Impmon, why did you do that for? Don't disrespect a sovereign, you insolent whelp, by speaking like you know them, a deeper voice spoke, and then the figure with the deep voice slammed his fist on top of the smaller figure. Oh great, it's you, the other tamers and their Digimon deadpan. The new tamer turned, revealing himself to be none other than the forever annoying Ryo Akiyama. You guys? He yelled, pointing at them. It's them, it's us, aren't you glad to see us? Terriermon said with a sarcastic voice. There's no way I'm helping them. Especially him. The Black Democrat Arkansas-wielding tamer spat the word like Veman on his tongue as he jabbed his index finger at Naruto. Didn't your Okachan ever tell you it's impolite to point? The blonde narrowed his eyes at the younger boy. Ryo clenched his hand into a fist before looking at the large turtle. Help them. Now the turtle spoke in a menacing tone unfitting of the way he had spoken before. Ryo stared at the 2 pairs of eyes as both heads looked at him with a glare. I'll help them, fine. But only this time. Ryo walked with Cyberdramon over to the other tamers and then looked at Rika and gave a small smirk. The fiery-haired tamer remained stoic before looking at the sovereigns. So how are we gonna get down there? Kenta asked. Well, Azulongmon's mustache can grow in length just by though, so all you have to do is grab some hair, and then he will gently let you guys down. Oh, and be sure to tie it around your waist so that you won't fall so easily, the Tiger of Steel explained. Alright, let's go, Henry said, but then he looked at Susie and frowned. Actually, never mind, I'll stay up here with Susie. I'm afraid she'll be too afraid to go down into the hole. The others nodded. Jeri stayed behind for obvious reasons. We'll stay here too, Kazu and Kenta said. Fear of heights, the visor-wearing Tamer said as he and Gardaman sat down on the ground. Necrophobia was Kenta's reason as Marine Angeman rested herself atop Kenta's head before her Tamer lay down on the ground as well. Well, okay. Anyone else want to back out? The blonde shinobi asked. No reply were made and the whiskered teenager nodded to Azulongmon. Azulongmon's mustache suddenly seemed to come alive before it lashed out, creating long ropes of hair, and then wrapped themselves around the waists of all the Digimon and their tamers. Now I'll be letting you off when you find ground for you to stand on. Although I can increase my hair's length, there's a limit to how long it could go. That, and it really pulls on the hair roots. The tamer's sweat dropped at the large dragon before they were lifted up and gently let down into the hole. The place was dark, but due to the light from the sovereign's auras and the light of the daytime from the digital world entering the hole, their eyes quickly adjusted to the lack of light before their feet touched down on a thin ledge. It was big enough for them to gain suitable footing, but small enough that one misstep and they could fall to their deaths. All right, Azulongmon, Naruto and Doraemon yelled to the dragon. The cue reached the lightning dragon's ears and his mustache ropes let them go before retracting back upwards. Carefully, the tamers and the Digimon, except for Cyberdramon who could fly, carefully edged themselves along the ledge. A few minutes of moving down the spiral-shaped ledge, Renamon and Gatamon spotted something out of their peripheral vision. The two Digimon looked to see a small white object. Naruto, channel chakra into your eyes. We can see something over there. To your left, dead ahead. The blonde shinobi did so, and then his night vision as well as his overall vision increased, and he looked at the object. It was small and white. Two large ear-like appendages were attached to its head, and seemed to grow and shrink. There's only one thing I can think of who has ears like that, the blonde smirked. Calumon. The tamers looked at Naruto in surprise at the sudden outburst, but their Digimon helped them keep their balance. They all looked in the direction that Naruto was looking, and remembering he had a backpack full of necessities, Takato reached in and carefully pulled out his flashlight and shined it in the direction of the white object. The object turned and bright green eyes shined at the sight of his friends. Naruto, Doraemon, Rika, Takato, Gilman, haha. The cream-puffed Digimon smiled before jumping and spreading his ears as he attempted to glide towards them, and nearly didn't make it had Cyberdramon not caught him in time. Calumon wriggled out of the scary lizard's grip and jumped into Rika's arms. You guys came for me, he laughed. Well, of course we did. You're our friend, Calumon, Rika said with a smirk. Calumon giggled before there was a large earth-shaking movement. Rika gripped Calumon tightly and the tamers, except for Rio who jumped onto Cyberdramon's back, used chakra to keep their balance while their Digimon used their claws to anchor themselves to the rocky wall. The shaking continued until it suddenly stopped. What was that? They all looked down. A few seconds passed, and then small red bubbles flew out of the depths of the hole. Kyuso. It's the D-Reaper's energy. They watched as the bubbles floated upwards and gazed in fright and shock as a bubble touched an area of the wall and popped, causing that area of the wall to be disintegrated. Everyone out now! Naruto yelled. The others nodded. Takato channeled chakra into his feet and arms before aiding and carrying Gilman up out of the hole by running up the walls. Doraemon and Gatamon were busy attaching their claws to the walls and quickly climbing up out of the hole, following Takato as Rio and Cyberdramon flew up and out of the hole, avoiding the bubbles of the D-Reaper's data-deleting energy. Naruto turned to start scaling the wall, his chakra already pumped into his feet, but he looked to see Rika looking down at the chaos, its hideous gelatinous form finally revealing itself as it began to climb up the hole. Rika-chan! The fiery-haired girl turned and gave Calumon to Naruto. Keep him safe, Renamon. The blonde Kitsune appeared next to her tamer. No, Rika-chan, I'm not going to let you try to stop this thing. The blonde growled. Rika turned and then walked up to her boyfriend before looking into his eyes. The Sovereign said for us to try and find a way to get out of this, and try to at least hold back the D-Reaper. Well, Renamon and I will handle it. You've done too much for me, Naruto-kun, so let me do this. Let me help to save you and the others this time. Rika kissed Naruto on the lips, and they held it for a good 10 seconds before she let him go. Now go. I promise I'll be back, Databeo. She yelled in confidence, earning a chuckle from the both of them. They looked down to see the chaos slowly climbing up, slowly, but still rising. Okay, oh, and Rika-chan. I love you, and with that the blonde tamer clutched Calumon before scaling the walls. Rika smiled at her boyfriend and then got a serious look as she turned to Renamon. You'll be there to catch me, right? She asked. Renamon's ice blue eyes burned with determination and promise. Of course, then let's go. Together, and Rika grabbed Renamon's paw and the two jumped. Rika's Democrat Arkansas let out a bright blue light of energy, and coated the Tamer and Digimon as they fell. Biomerge Digivolution. Renamon Biomerge 2. Rika's body fused into Renamon's as the fox Digimon's skin peeled off to show the blue wireframe pattern. A sea of blue data surrounded Rika before Renamon's form reconstructed itself and bonding Rika's DNA to the data. Slightly tanned skin formed before the form was clothed in a black, full-body suit. Energy sprouted of the Biomerge Digimon's form and then 4 kitsune-like spirits, one blue which bore the kanji for water on its forehead, one green and had the kanji for wind, one yellow for thunder and one red and had the kanji for fire on its forehead. The fox spirits all spun around her waist before changing into 4 pipes that attached themselves to her waist. Then armor formed around her upper body. On both shoulders were the images of the yin-yang symbol, and in the center of the armor, just below her chest area, were gray symbols that looked like a flower in the shape of a cross. A flowing mane of silver hair, fashioned into the look of a fox's tail, grew from her head before a helmet in the shape of a fox's head covered the upper half of her face. Purple and gold gloves that formed from her wrists to her elbow, along with similarly colored leg protectors that reached from her upper thigh to her ankles, each bearing the yin-yang symbol, formed. Then a golden light shone in her hands before a golden staff was found to be floating above her palms. The staff was about 9 feet in length, and at its tip was a large ring. Connected to that ring were 8 others, 6 on the bottom and 2 on the top. The 2 on the top placed themselves next to a golden spike that grew from the top of the ring. The Biomerge Digimon grasped the staff and twirled it before yelling her name, Zhuqiaomon. The Biomerge Digimon spoke in the fused voices of Renamon and Rika. A/N. When the Tamers aren't around, I, the author, KitsuneDragon, will perform the Democrat Arkansas analysis of the Digimon for you. Zhuqiaomon, a mega-level Digimon. She is a Miko, a master of the arts of manipulating spirits and bending certain elements to her will. Her armor is composed of magical components mixed with gold chrome digits. The pipes around her waist each contain an elemental spirit, one for water, earth, fire and wind, respectively. Her staff is able to control all these elements and allow her to perform her abilities at their maximum. Her attacks are Spirit Strike, Crystal Sphere, Amethyst Wind, Amethyst Mandala, Twin Blades of Beauty and Truth, and Fox Drive. The newly formed Mega floated in the air before swirling her staff and released a column of light that struck at the bubbles of the chaos energy, completely destroying them. The D-Reaper seemed to roar in anger before a pair of arms made of the gelatinous monster reached out to grab her. Crystal Sphere! A crystal blue sphere formed around the Miko Digimon and repelled the D-Reaper's assault and nullified its arms. Zhuqiaomon then clapped her hands together, and the sphere exploded outwards in the form of an energy arc and sliced the arms off. She then scanned the area around her and noticed the very unstable rock walls. She flew upwards, but not too close to the mouth of the hole before she saw large red jaws nearing her. Oh no, you don't! She held her staff up high above her head, and then a sphere of blue flames formed at the tip of the sphere. Fox Drive! The large sapphire ball of flame flew towards the jaws that aimed to eat her alive and absorb her data, exploded upon contact and burned through to the bottom of the hole and caused a large plume of fire to burn the majority of the D-Reaper, causing the data-destroying behemoth to release what seemed to be a cry of pain. The rocks began to fall from the walls and onto the D-Reaper. Now to try and make sure you don't get up, Zhuqiaomon spoke before raising her staff into the air. The pipes around her waist glowed with the color of their element, and then whips of blue, yellow, red and green energy formed and snaked their way around the length of the staff before becoming 4 fox-like avatars of their color. She pointed her staff at the D-Reaper and the rock walls. Spirit Strike! The spirit foxes howled before they shot forth, leaving behind a trail of their element behind them. The foxes then morphed into a giant white kitsune that let out a roar that would have made QB proud before expanding in size and then destroying the area below Zhuqiaomon, and then a large explosion of the elements occurred. Zhuqiaomon turned and flew up and out of the hole. The Miko Digimon panted slightly before being coated in a blue shroud of data and then turning into Rika and Renamon. That was amazing, the fiery-haired Tamer gasped. I never knew we possessed such strength, as Zhuqiaomon Renamon added. So you two biomerged? Naruto asked. The two nodded, and then the blonde turned to Zhuqiaomon. You thought humans and Digimon couldn't work together, that if we ever met that it would result in destruction for the digital world. Well, look. We all biomerged without partners to change into their megaforms, Zhuqiaomon. We stopped Beelzemon and Lilithmon. We held our own against you. A sovereign and Rika here just helped hold back what you Digimon would call the ultimate threat. Naruto paused to gauge the Phoenix's reaction, but saw nothing but a look of hurt pride in the 4 orange orbs that were the sovereign of the South's eyes. You have proven me wrong many times, Uzumaki, and it seems that you are correct. Together with your Digimon you have stopped the many threats, even managing to destroy the Devas. But now we need the catalyst's power to aid in destroying the chaos. The phoenix turned to the small Calumon. Calumon Biomerge spoke. The large-eyed light of Digivolution nodded as he floated up to the eye level of the giant tiger. You are part of the fight to end the destruction of our kind by this chaos, by the D-Reaper. Look inside yourself and search for the sleeping power within you and unleash it. Give your kind the power to help us stop the chaos and save your species. Calumon gulped and then looked at Azulongmon and Impmon. Please, Calumon, and to everyone's surprise, the sovereigns bowed to Calumon. Help us. The cream-puffed Digimon suddenly felt the weight of the situation and nodded. Will anything happen to me? He asked. No, if you do this though, you would have unleashed all the power from the light of Digivolution and spread it across the southern quadrant, giving your brethren instant warp Digivolution to the mega level. Upon doing so, you will become a regular Digimon. Should you wish it, become a normal Digimon? Calumon's eyes widened and then nodded. Very well. The sovereign smirked at the small cream puff as he floated high into the air, and then put his tiny fingerless hands together, as if he were praying. Search inside myself. Look for that sleeping power within me. The 0 unit on Calumon's forehead suddenly began to glow, and then shone with a light that made the lights from Gallantmon's shield of the just attack look like it was a tiny light bulb in terms of the light's brightness. The light then glowed and then a small multicolored beam of energy flew up into the sky, gaining in strength and size the higher up it went before it condensed into a sphere and exploded. Light beams flew through the air and through the digital world. Digimon everywhere from rookie, to champion, to ultimate, they all gained their light of Digivolution and changed into their mega forms before using their new ability of flight or super speed to reach the area where the sovereigns were in a matter of minutes. Naruto watched in awe before he saw a stray beam of light fly towards him and then go into his pocket. He put his hand into that pocket and pulled out Gatamon's Democrat Arkansas. The bronze-colored Democrat Arkansas beeped before scanning Gatamon with a multicolored light before beeping once more after doing the scan. Gatamon recognized. Full Digivolution possible. Use of blue card now enables Mega Digivolution without Biomerge Digivolution. The bronze Democrat Arkansas spoke before falling silent. The Tamers saw all this occurred and looked at Gatamon. I can Digivolve to Mega. Without Biomerge, she thought it disbelief. However, everyone was knocked out of her thoughts as everyone heard roars, screeches, honks, squawks, and various other sounds. They all looked around them, and their eyes widened. Everyone gaped in shock at the amount of Mega Digimon floated before them. Diaboromon, Metalgarurumon, Wargreymon, Vikemon, Pleasiamon, Human and many other mega-level Digimon surrounded them. Calumon moaned as he felt a strong headache hit him hard. He began to fall only for a Hulsman to swoop down and catch him before resting him down on the ground. The Hulsman nodded and bowed to sovereigns before taking its place back among the ranks of Digimon. My brethren, the light of Digivolution has given you all amazing strength, and you are all now in your mega forms. With this power we will crush the rising chaos and prevent it from damaging our world for good. The sovereigns roared. The Digimon gave a chorus of roars in response. But this is only the beginning. Naruto, Doraemon and Gatamon looked at each other. There is another, a greater evil than the D-Reaper, Lucemon, thousands of miles beneath the crust of the digital world. Lucemon's wings flapped furiously as he aimed to reach the surface. Soon, the digital world will be mine, and no one will be able to stop me. Not a second time. The fallen angel grinned in such an insane manner he could give the Joker a run for his money. However, just as he passed the halfway mark between the depth of the digital world and the surface, a loud rumbling was heard from his left. Lucemon's eyes widened before he continued to fly, his 8 wings giving him the necessary thrust before a loud crash was heard beneath him. A roar echoed throughout the soil as Lucemon flew higher and higher, burning away the deep layers of earth that would hinder his movement with the aura of light and darkness surrounding him. However, the roar suddenly seemed to paralyze him before the sky-blue-eyes Digimon looked to see a flash of bronze and gold along with a shining orange color. Lucemon's eyes widened and then waited for the loud crashing sounds from beneath him to reach his location as he was paralyzed by some unknown force produced by the roar. Lucemon waited, and waited. A few seconds passed. Lucemon's sighed in relief, only for a crash to appear on his left, and he was suddenly pushed through the earth, slammed through after layer of dirt, muck, grime, soil, raw deposits of chrome digizud, and whatnot until he was suddenly forced downwards back to the bottom, only for a bright flash to flood his vision. Lucemon looked around the area to find himself back on the surface, but in excruciating pain, and in an area of the digital world he did not recognize. Where am I? The fallen angel got up to his feet. A low growl was heard behind him, and the childlike Digimon turned to come face to face with his most mastered enemy, the dragon of the center, the ruler and true god of the digital world, Fanglongmon, but it was who was resting atop the dragon that had Lucemon's eyes widen in shock. Lucemon, long time so see, still trying to take over the digital world. I see Alchomon sat atop the dragon of the center's head and glared, rage filling his golden-colored eyes. Alchomon clapped his hands together, and then trailed his left hand along the right automail arm, a blade forming along the length of the forearm as the metal was transmuted. Alchomon, where am I? Lucemon asked, looking around the area. Alchomon, due to Lucemon's escape there has been an unforeseen instability in the digital world's core. I will be leaving Lucemon up to you as I go try to heal the core. Also, Fanglongmon tapped Alchom's forehead, I just established a mental link between us, so if you need my assistance, don't worry old friend, I won't need it though the help is appreciated, Alchomon stated. Fanglongmon nodded before he vanished in a flash of gold light. Alchomon, where am I? How did you get out of Beelzemon's stomach? The fallen angel growled. You are in the domain of Fanglongmon that he only allows those he wishes to enter, and you cannot exit without his permission either. You are trapped here. Alchomon raised his automail blade. I am your opponent Lucemon, I will strike you down. This will be where the final fight will be held. This will be our battleground. This is where you will finally fall. Chapter 23, An enemy rises, a hero falls. The Tamers looked at the many mega-level Digimon surrounding them, and could only gape in awe. Calumon hopped over to Doraemon before landing on his head and resting there. Hey guys, did I do good? Calumon asked. Naruto smirked, and bent down to pat the little cream puff on his head. You did great, Calumon the blonde shinobi replied. Well Naruto, Doraemon, fellow Tamers and Digimon. Azulongmon spoke and bowed to the humans and their partners. I wish you a safe journey home. Arigato. Azulongmon came the chorus of replies. The earth shook as the Digimon felt the D-Reaper trying to force its way back up towards the surface. Though Azulongmon, can't you just open another portal for us to leave in like you did with Naruto and I? The ex-antibody holder asked. My apologies, but I cannot. I will need all my strength to combat the chaos, and it takes a great deal of energy from my DG cores to allow interdimensional travel, and the DG cores take quite a while to replenish themselves, the Dragon of the East replied. Ah man, so are we gonna get home now? Kazu whined. Biomerge's ears twitched before looking to the sky where the earth floated in all its glowing glory. I believe your transport back home is appearing right now, the great white tiger spoke in his deep booming voice. The Tamers and their partners looked to the sky and widened as they saw a large pink and purple vortex swirling before lengthening into a funnel. Something's coming out of there, Henry noted as he saw a shadow through semi-transparent portal. What the hell is that thing? The group chorused. Shinjuku Hypnos Tower's tech lab. In a single room, computers, hard drives, monitors, printers, cabinets filled to the brim with computer programs since the making of the first computers, and many other types of electronic equipment and apparatus were located. The sound of keyboards being used filled the room as the reunited monster makers had once again gathered to create a way to bring the children and their Digimon back from the digital world. Okay guys, are you all almost finished with the central processing program for Project Arc yet? Janyu asked a man. The man's name was Rob McCoy, who went by the nickname Dolphin. He had orange hair and black eyes which looked through a pair of convex lens glasses. He wore a plaid shirt underneath a sweater vest and long gray pants and black shoes. The man typed furiously away on the keyboard as he entered strings of computer code. Almost he hit the enter key with a satisfied click. Did it? He cried out in victory. Me too. I got the digital quantum matrix all typed out and ready to be launched as soon as you guys are ready to synthesize the data and make the arc so we can it to the digital world and get those kids. An Indian woman who wore a purple and gold sari and had deep brown eyes and a pair of purple flats, named Rai Shawaria. An African-American man by the name of Babel, who wore a simple dark blue shirt, black pants and brown leather shoes, swiveled his chair as he just finished typing out the computer code and clicked enter. The man's dark shades glinted in the light of the room as he lay back in his chair. Alright dogs, I got the supporting data waves merged with Curly's digital quantum matrix. Now we can be sure the portal will be stable. A blonde woman with deep blue eyes wearing a women's business suit got up from her chair to stretch her legs. This was Daisy, another member of the famed Monster Makers squad. Alright, I got software and the primary data needed to create Project Arc and threw in a few bits and pieces to create a little probe to watch what happens in the digital world and relay images back to us. We're all ready, Tao, she called out to Janyu using his old college nickname. The Asian man nodded before walking over to a large computer screen and typed away on the keyboard connected to it. The screen lit up as he typed in the various amounts of code and then pressed enter before continuing to type. The screen turned black before a green wire frame pattern in the shape of what seemed to be a Jedi fighter in terms of design. The arc gained color, turning a pale gray before pink and purple flooded the screen and the arc zoomed through the portal. Jianyu typed a few more keys and due to Daisy's prowess in software they were able to get a first-hand view of what the arc was seeing. Digital World Southern Quadrant. The Digimon in the air parted as the arc flew through the portal and then landed softly on the ground in front of the Tamers and their Digimon. The arc released a whining sound as the hatch opened revealing the cockpit, large enough for the Tamers and their Digimon to fit in, lined with flashing lights and a single electric eye which allowed the people in the real world to view the inside of the ark. Sug, the Tamers gasped before walking towards it. It looks like something out of a Star Wars movie, Takato commented as he looked at the ark's design. Takato suddenly heard a beep coming from his bag and opened it to retrieve the beeping item, the communication pad that Yamaki had given him. A message suddenly appeared on the screen. There is a craft waiting for you when you are all ready to leave. It's called the Ark. I had some people create it for you all to get out of the digital world. Takato, reply when you get this message to let me know you got this, Yamaki. Takato immediately replied and Yamaki responded with a confirmation message. Hey guys. Takato turned to the others. This is our way out of the digital world. Yamaki said it's able to travel between the real world and the digital world, so we'll be able to go home now. Excellent, Naruto spoke before telling them to get into the ark. When he saw everyone climb in, he turned to see Rio and Cyberdragon standing there with a look of internal conflict within the Black Democrat Arkansas-wielding Tamer's eyes. Should I go? But they all obviously hate me, especially Naruto and Rika. And besides, Cyberdragon is too big to fit into that tiny ship. Rio's thoughts were interrupted when he saw Naruto and Doraemon walk up to him. The blonde sighed, Look Rio, we have our differences and I do hate you, but you're human and you've probably been here for a while. So you coming or not? Rio's eyes widened in shock as he stared at the shinobi Tamer. You want me to come with you guys? This would be a temporary arrangement, of course. Doraemon spoke this time, his tail swishing back and forth. Once we arrive in the real world, you and Cyberdragon will be free to do what you wish. Whether you choose to stay or leave, the rest of the Tamers would be your choice. Cyberdragon growled in thought before turning to his Tamer and nodded. The brown-haired Tamer nodded back to his Digimon. We accept, though how is Cyberdragon going to fit? Naruto took out a card and slashed it through the reddish-violet Democrat Arkansas for Doraemon. Digimodify, data extraction activate. Doraemon's claws glowed red before he stabbed them through the ultimate-level Digimon's skull. Well, you just impaled my partner, UTME. Rio roared in rage and surprise, but it was quickly reduced to just surprise as he saw Cyberdragon's form glow with a pale white light before the tall humanoid dragon shrunk down to approximately the size of Doraemon. Doraemon dropped down and held the blood-red sphere of data before crushing it. That was the data that made up Cyberdragon. You can still create Cyberdragon through your blue card and Matrix Digivolve your rookie partner, the bipedal furry reptile informed Rio, who could only nod as he watched the light die down and reveal his partner's rookie stage. A small, violet scale-covered draconic creature stood with a dazed look in its golden eyes. It had two slightly longer than average arms that had wings membranes that were connected to the arm. At the end of each arm, where the wing membrane joined at, it bulged to form a hand-like appendage with 3 drill-shaped claws. Its legs were very muscular, meaning that it could probably run quite fast for a long period of time before getting tired. Its feet had 3 drill-shaped claws, similar to that of its hands. On its pectorals extending to its rib area were 2 long streaks of crimson. Its shoulders were coated in what seemed to be golden armor like scales. Its head was shaped like a dinosaur, bird and dragon all fused into one. A crest of some kind extended out of the back of its head, which had golden armor like scales at the tip and near the middle. In the center of its forehead lay a gem made of the same material as the golden armor like scales. Monodramon, rookie level. Although it is a vaccine Digimon, it tends to have a rather brutal personality, and thus it gets into fights rather quickly. It is said its horn or crest on the back of its head is its weak point, but this hasn't been proven. Attacks are cracking, bite and beat knuckle. Naruto read as he scanned the Digimon. Whoa, what happened? Monodramon groaned as the dragon rubbed his aching cranium. Come on, Monodramon, we gotta get into the ship. Rio helped his partner to his feet and helped the dragon walk to the craft. Naruto and Doraemon looked as the two climbed into the ship. Naruto-kun, come on! Rika yelled out to the duo. Naruto and Doraemon were about to comply when there was a shift in the wind. Naruto and Doraemon looked at each other. He's still alive? Doraemon questioned. Apparently, think we should go get him? Naruto replied with his own question. The ex-antibody holder thought for a minute. He tried to eat you and kill you, then he tried to kill the rest of us. Normally I would say leave him to die, but he was under the influence of Lucemon, so I can make an exception. The dragon turned to his tamer and nodded. Alright, Rika-chan, Doraemon and I have something to do. Make sure the ship is still here when we get back. Nanny, are you insane? The redhead turned to Takato as he just got another message from Yamaki. Arc cannot remain stable for so long in the digital world. Hurry up and get out of there. It has only 30 minutes before instability begins to occur. Kyuso Takato muttered beneath his breath so that Suzy wouldn't hear. Rika, I heard Naruto. Tell him he has at least 20 minutes. The arc has only 30 minutes before it begins to lose its digital stability and remain in the digital world. Rika relayed the message to her boyfriend, who gave a salute. I'll be back by then. Biomerge, what's the fastest Digimon here? We have to go and retrieve someone. Naruto turned to the large feline Digimon. Biomerge smirked as he bent down to Naruto's level. That, my young shinobi, would be me. Though a human is fast enough to keep pace, I am able to put on bursts of speed so that I am far superior. Climb on my back, I'll take you where you need to go. Just give me directions. Arigato. Biomerge-sama. Naruto and Doraemon gave a bow of respect to the Tiger of Steel before they jumped atop the tiger's back. The tiger gave a roar before taking off, shocking all but the other three sovereigns present as Biomerge took off, not even leaving a blur of movement. The tiger just seemed to vanish from the spot. Only a trail of desert sand that was kicked up was any indication of the sovereign's movement. Whoa, Biomerge-sama, I never knew you could move this fast. Doraemon yelled to the sovereign over the rushing winds that flew past their ears. Arigato. I pride myself on my speed, the feline responded with a toothy grin. The dual partner Tamer channeled his Biju's chakra into his nose so as to increase his sense of smell. He then isolated the many smells that assaulted his nasal caverns before finding the one he was looking for. Turn left and continue for another 10 miles. We'll be there in 5 minutes given my speed, Biomerge replied before turning and rocketing off in the direction Naruto instructed him to move. The large tiger ran for 5 minutes, just as he had predicted, and halted his movement, causing Naruto and Doraemon to fly off from the sudden transference of momentum. Biomerge quickly raised his right paw and caught them before resting them on the sands. Are you sure? What you are looking for is here. I see nothing but sand. It's not what you see, it's what you smell, the blonde Tamer told the Sovereign of the West before he took a few steps forward and then sniffed the air once more, his ears twitching simultaneously as he listened to any sound that would have accompanied the wind's whistling. A groan hit all three individuals' ears. What is that? Biomerge looked around the sands for the location of the groan. It's coming from over. Naruto sniffed again before pointing at a 35-degree angle from his left. There. Naruto and Doraemon quickly motioned for Biomerge to come, and the Sovereign followed before walking over the spot where Naruto pointed. With one massive breath, the Sovereign blew away a large amount of sand to reveal, Impmon, there you are. Naruto picked up the small scarf-wearing Digimon. The Imp Digimon groaned. Blondie, that you? What happened? I remember I was talking with that blasted bird, Zhuqiaomon, and told me he would make me digivolve. Then, I remember turning into something, and then it all went black. Impmon groaned, clutching his head as a headache hit him full force. Don't worry, it's not your fault, Doraemon said. Come on, we're taking you back to the real world with us. Impmon's eyes widened before he looked shot up, and his eyes widened even further as he saw Biomerge standing before them. The our real world, and is that BB Biomerge? Do not fret, little one, now come on, it's been about 10 minutes since we left. Naruto, you have 10 minutes to return to your friends before your time here become truly limited. Naruto nodded at the white tiger, and then grabbed Doraemon before leaping with both rookies and onto Biomerge's back. Hold on! Biomerge roared before taking off at even faster pace, leaving a cloud of dust followed by a sonic boom as the sound barrier broke. Back with the Tamers. How much time do we have left? Henry asked Takato. The goggle-wearing Tamer glanced at his watch. It's been only 15 minutes since Naruto left. We have 15 more minutes before the arc becomes unstable, but Naruto has 5 more minutes. We need to leave as soon as possible so that we don't have as a little gap in time in case we run into any unexpected troubles when the arc begins to leave, Takato said. Don't worry, Takatomon, the Crimson Digital Hazard Lizard said optimistically. Narutomon and Doraemon will be back in no time. Yeah dude, Naruto and Doraemon aren't ones to not make it back in time, Kazu smirked. I concur, Ryo said. The others looked at Ryo. That Naruto does not seem like the person who would let people down, especially since you guys are his friends. Besides, he's riding Biomerge, the fastest Digimon in the digital world. Not even a speed Digimodify card equipped to one of the fastest Digimon would be able to beat Biomerge. That gave the others a calm conscience. Rika, you've been awfully quiet, the Black Democrat Arkansas-wielding Tamer spoke. The others winced as Rika's violet-gray eyes turned to look at Ryo's brown ones. A storm of emotion shone in them, but the anger and betrayal she felt towards Rio was the most prominent. Urasai, team, the fiery-haired girl spoke before leaning against Renamon. The fox Digimon curled her tail around her tamer's waist before looking at Rio. Her blue eyes closed as she shook her head no as Rio attempted to speak again. Rio became silent, but that moment of silence was quickly broken by an ear-shattering boom as the sound barrier was broken. The Tamers and their Digimon looked up out of the arc as they saw Biomerge standing there with Naruto and Doraemon atop his head. In Naruto's arms, though, there was a small figure, though they couldn't make it out. Renamon could, however, as her glacial blue eyes honed in on the figure in Naruto's arms. Look, Henry, no widows on the big kitty cat, Susie giggled. Everyone's sweat dropped as the little 6-year-old managed to ruin the mood of the whole situation. Renamon's eyes widened as she returned to looking at the figure as Naruto and Doraemon dropped down. They turned and bowed to the great cat, who nodded in acknowledgement. Naruto and Doraemon then walked towards the ark. "That's Impmon!" Renamon exclaimed. "Nanny?" The others exclaimed, except for Rio, Monodramon and Susie, who had no idea what was going on. "What's wrong with the Impmon?" The three clueless individuals asked as Naruto and Doraemon neared their location. "Well, you see, Impmon had Mega Digivolved into his dark Mega form, Beelzemon of the Seven Sins, the Demon Lords. He nearly killed Naruto in that form had he not been rescued by a friend of Naruto and Doraemon who had also been eaten by the Demon Lord named Alchomon. Impmon, while as Beelzemon, after eating Naruto, turned to kill us instead, but Takato and Gilman performed what is known as Biomerge Digivolution and turned into Gallantmon and beat him Lilithmon," Susie's former Deva partner explained. Rio and Monodramon were in shock, but Susie was clueless as ever, her 6-year-old mind still not grasping the magnitude of what was just said by her chocolate-colored partner. "So guys, you ready to go?" "Takato, how much time do we have?" Takato glanced at his watch as he held the communication tablet from Yamaki in his other hand. "You came 2 minutes early. Okay, I'll message Yamaki and then it's back to the real world," earning a cheer from the rest of the group. The Tamers and their Digimon then stood to face the Sovereigns and the other Mega Digimon surrounding the gods of the digital world. There was an eerie silence as the Digimon faced the Tamers. The two sides then bowed to each other. The Digimon just followed the Sovereign's examples though, before raising their heads. "Have a safe journey home, lads," Abomin's left head spoke. "And don't forget to visit us when you get the chance, or I'll thrash your heads," the right one said, earning a chuckle from the Tamers. "We thank you for your help," Sovereign's Naruto spoke on behalf of his group. "The pleasure was all ours," Tamer's Azulongmon said with what would seem to be smirk, but you can't see it behind his large flowing mustache. "Improve those manners," Agaki's Zhuqiaomon screeched, "and don't go blowing up my palace." The Tamers and their partners' sweat dropped while Monodramon and Rio just gaped at their new allies. They blew up a sovereign's palace, and they're still alive, the two thought. "Our bad," Takato chuckled. "Gomen nasai," Zhuqiaomon sama Renamon chuckled. The ark suddenly released a large humming combined with whirring as the hatch began to close. "Ja-ni." The Tamers and their Digimon called out to the horde of Megas, who nodded in response. The ark floated up into the air before a large string of pink-colored data attached to its front flew through the air, leading back to the floating image of Earth in the sky. The ark then began to follow the data cord back to the real world. The ark then began to gain speed as it followed the cord before the cord began to expand and diameter before forming the vortex that it had originally emerged from. The passengers of the ark suddenly lurched backwards, slamming against each other, as the ark's speed reached maximum levels. "Way to go, Ark!" Gilman and Takato patted the digital machine. Everyone's eyes widened in shock as a cord suddenly extended itself from the ark's board and then went over to Takato and Gilman. It reached by Takato before the cord attached itself to the tablet that the goggle-wearing Tamer held. The ark's eye glowed before computer language flowed from the ark through the cord, where it was translated upon reaching the tablet into Japanese. "You are welcome, Ark." Takato and Gilman looked in awe as they realized the ark just spoke to them. Indirectly, but still spoke. "Shinjuku Hypnos Towers. John, you look, it's working. The ark is coming back." Curly cried out in joy. Those present in the room clapped as their experimental Noah's Ark worked and was returning the children home. "I'm glad to see you're safe, Henry." Susie Johnny wiped the tears from his eyes as he viewed his children, who were busy holding on for dear life as the ark sped through cyberspace towards the real world. "Ready the digital matter transporter," Yamaki ordered. The monster makers nodded. However, they were stopped when the elevator that led to the computer room they were currently in dinged, and the doors opened. "I suppose you wouldn't mind if I aided in seeing through that the Tamers get back home safely, would you?" A male voice asked before the figure stepped out of the elevator. The monster makers smirked. "No, not all," Daisy said with a smile. "Shibumi?" The Jesus look-alike tipped his hat. "Excellent." The Void, Lucemon and Alchomon stared at each other as the Void suddenly took on a physical form. A rocky landscape with scattered trees made the ground. The ground shook as cliffs and boulders burst out of the earth, taking on many shapes and varying sizes. The white nothingness above them changed to a dark storm gray as cumulonimbus clouds formed, lightning flashed, thunder boomed and wind howled. However, rain did not fall per the will of Fanglongmon. A fitting area for such a battle, wouldn't you say, Alchomon? The fallen angel asked with a smirk. The blonde alchemist made no reply, but simply held up his automail arm. The blade he transmuted gleamed in the light of the lightning bolts that stretched across the sky. Silent I see. Well, shorty, Lucemon smirked as he floated above the red cloak-wearing Digimon as Alchomon developed a tick mark on his forehead. You do know I am taller than you, right? Alchomon replied with a twitch of annoyance forming with his left eye. Ah, but still you're too much of a midget to reach me. Alchomon's eyes changed into anime angry eyes, pure white and void of pupils. He pointed at Lucemon. Who are you calling too small to not be able to be seen underneath a magnifying glass, Temi? Alchomon roared, clapping his hands and slamming them on the ground. Transmutation. Cannons formed as the earth reshaped itself due to the alchemy before they fired yellow blasts of alchemic energy from their mouths. Lucemon simply held out his hand and swatted away each blast like it were an annoying fly. His eyes closed in confidence. However, when the sky blue orbs reopened, he was shocked to find Alchomon already in his face. He's gotten faster, Lucemon marveled as Alchomon raised his bladed arm. Automail crusher. The bladed arm came crashing down with explosive force, sending Lucemon to the ground. Lucemon grunted as he wiped his face where the bruise had formed before it was healed thanks to the Digimon healing factor. Looking up, he found the pointed edge of Alchomon's blade only a few centimeters from his face. You've improved your speed and your blows have gotten stronger since our last fight. Alchomon smirked at Lucemon's praise. Well, I haven't been doing nothing in Beelzemon's stomach all those years, the blonde Mega replied. Brings back memories though. 3 demon lords were killed by your hand, though you probably did something to revive Lilithmon, seeing as you absorbed her data once you killed her, though she was ended by Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and his partner, Doraemon. I had killed 2 demon lords, now all that remains is you. Lucemon chuckled. Someone's been keeping score, but the time for talk is over. The fallen angel took to the skies as he kicked Alchomon away. Flapping his wings, Lucemon spread out his arms horizontally and put his legs together so that they pointed straight down, shaping himself into the likeliness of a cross. Grand Cross. 10 spheres of superheated energy formed in front of Lucemon, they too taking the shape of a cross. The spheres shot forth and Alchomon countered by clapping his hands together before slamming them on the ground. A wall of earth rose and took the hit, but the shockwave from the explosion was so powerful that Alchomon was sent flying through the air a good 20 feet away and his cloak was on fire, the orange flames licking at his sleeves and the left shoulder area. Alchomon gritted his teeth before flipping in the air, skidding along the ground and digging his automail blade into the ground as he slowed his movement before coming to a stop. Alchomon shed his cloak to reveal the black sleeveless tunic underneath, his automail right arm shining in all its glory as his muscular right arm flexed in anticipation of movement. The golden eyes of the alchemist Digimon widened as he saw the large crater where the Grand Cross struck and the long slash in the ground that led to his position by using his transmuted blade to slow his movement. It was nearly 10 feet in length. Has Lucemon always been this powerful? The blonde alchemist thought. Alchomon clapped his hands and then slammed them on the ground. Blue lightning burst forth from his palms, and the ground rumbled as the smoke cloud generated from Lucemon's attack split apart. The 8-winged angel raced towards his enemy before he saw the earth behind Alchomon break apart. Transmutation. An earth titan rose from the bowels of the void before releasing a loud groan as it took its first step towards his creator's enemy. The titan lashed out with a massive fist, but Lucemon rotated in the air to perform a dive and then avoided the punch only for another earth fist, a significantly smaller one, meaning that Alchomon had made it, raced towards him. Lucemon punched the fist with his own and shattered it before the Earth Titan aimed a powerful kick. Lucemon flew up and skyrocketed towards the Titan's face before heading straight for the Titan's forehead. The holy rings on his ankles shone gold before he curled into a ball. The white and gold sphere of spinning data stopped rotating and shifting his form so that his left leg shot out. Divine feet. The foot imbued with holy energy crashed into the Titan's forehead. A large crack formed before Lucemon lashed out with another kick, this time with his right foot, and continued the flurry of kicks before the Titan's head was littered with feet-shaped craters and a spiderweb of cracks formed before Lucemon stopped and righted himself. He smirked before merely flicking the Titan's head, and the Titan shattered before the rubble of its form came crashing down. Alchomon jumped up, using the falling rubble of his Titan as steps as he leaped to his opponent. Lucemon raised his arm in defense, and blocked a swift kick aimed for his ribs from the taller Digimon. Alchomon used the momentum of his kick to reverse his body's movement, and aimed a backhand for Lucemon's face. Lucemon grabbed the Mega's fist and twisted only for nothing to greet his ears, as he had forgotten that this was his opponent's auto-mail arm. Alchomon smirked before he touched his palms together and touched his auto-mail arm. The arm changed into a blade that cut into Lucemon's hand and forced the Demon Lord to let go. Alchomon then dropped down to the ground below and rolled so that he wouldn't get earth upon contact. He quickly clapped his hands and changed his arm back into its regular form before clapping once more to form 1,000 earthen fists. Lucemon flew through the multitude of fists, only for one to catch him off guard as it redirected its shot and struck him in the stomach. Another fist used Lucemon's temporary paralysis from having the air force out of his lungs to its advantage and struck forth, landing a blow to Lucemon's ribs. A crunch sounded as probably 1 or 2 ribs cracked from the force. 3 more fists came through and struck Lucemon in the fist, stomach and elbow joint, respectively. Lucemon was then met with white-hot pain exploding throughout his body. Alchomon ran forth, and his auto-mail arm seemed to shine as he leaped into the air. Auto-mail crusher. His fist aimed for Lucemon's already damaged body. Lucemon grunted in pain as the digital hazard on his hand pulsed, and the holy bands on his wrists and ankles glowed gold, and then dark energy was released from his body along with a pulse of light energy. The two mixed with each other to create an explosion as the opposing elements clashed. Alchomon was thrown back and landed on the ground with a painful thud. Alchomon grunted in pain as he forced himself to his feet and saw Lucemon standing there with an angry look in his sky-blue eyes. Lucemon put his form into the shape of a cross, and the 10 superheated spheres of energy formed in front of him. Grand Cross. The cross-shaped attack shot forth, and Alchomon quickly clapped his hands and erected a wall of earth from his transmutation. But the attack seemed stronger and broke through the wall and released an explosion, sending Alchomon soaring through the air. Luckily, he had raised his auto-mail limbs to take the blow, so he was relatively fine if not for the few cuts along his flesh limbs and the dust covering his clothes and body. Too bad I lost my cloak early on. It would have protected me for that one. I really should get that thing remade. He quickly backflipped and created an earth pillar beneath his feet to project him further away as 10 more superheated spheres crashed into his previous location. Divine Feet. Lucemon's bands glowed with holy power as his foot crashed into Lucemon's auto-mail arm. Alchomon smirked. Finally, close combat. This is where I excel. Lucemon's eyes widened as the mistake he made, and he couldn't get out of it. He would have to fight with his hands and feet. Lucemon usually used his ability to fly along with his great strength and speed to take down his opponents. But he also used the Grand Cross as a way to defeat his opponents easily, and as such he was weak in physical combat. Kyuso was Lucemon's only comment before he raised his arm to block a fist from his opponent, only for Alchomon to fire another fist, which Lucemon caught in his hand. The blonde alchemist then jumped up to Floating Fallen Angel and crashed his heels into the childlike Digimon's torso, sending him backwards, and was met with a powerful palm strike to his chin. Lucemon opened his eyes and backflipped with the momentum of the palm strike to avoid the follow-up uppercut. Lucemon then flew down, and his bands glowed once more as he lashed out with a kick, only for Alchomon's own kick to clash with it. Both fighters copied each other's movements. They performed matching 2-punch combos before twisting in the air for their legs to meet at one point. Alchomon then went to perform an uppercut, but Lucemon leaned back and grabbed Alchomon's outstretched hand and swung the blonde alchemist over his shoulder, sending the Mega to the ground. Alchomon then shook his hand free of Lucemon's grip and performed a windmill, and slammed his heel against Lucemon's cheek. The fallen angel twisted with the attack and countered with a punch which Alchomon received to the side of his face. Alchomon recovered just as Lucemon lashed out with a kick. Divine Feet. A flurry of feet came crashing down on Alchomon, who raised his arms and blocked the attack before grabbing one of Lucemon's feet and held it in place using the auto-mail arm before swinging Lucemon into the ground. Lucemon bounced back up from the force before Alchomon twisted his body and crashed a powerful kick and sent the Demon Lord flying through the air. Lucemon recovered and steadied himself before flying high into the air out of Alchomon's reach. Lucemon floated in the air only to see the maw of an earth dragon descend upon him and return him to Alchomon's level. Lucemon coughed as dust filled his lungs, only for his face to be filled with pain as Alchomon's foot, the one made of auto-mail, smashed into it. If it was one thing that Lucemon really hated, it was getting hit in the face with the chrome digized alloy that made Alchomon's right arm and left leg. Lucemon rolled along the ground as Alchomon clapped his hands and slammed them on the ground. Blue lightning shot forth and traveled to Lucemon's location before the earth rose up in the form of a pillar and sent Lucemon into the sky. Alchomon then formed a cannon with alchemy and shot himself up into the sky, and his trajectory placed him straight above Lucemon's rising form. Alchomon then dived down and positioned his body so that his right arm and left leg were positioned downwards. Lucemon opened his sky blue eyes and looked as Alchomon descended upon him. Automale Crusher. Alchomon's cry met the fallen angel's ears before he flapped his 8 white wings and released a gust of wind to slow Alchomon's descent and give him time to move, but Alchomon's weight and momentum, and gravity, good old gravity, kept him going, and Lucemon raised his arms in an X shape before the 2 automale limbs crashed into his arms. The demon lord grunted in pain as the attack nearly broke his arms had it not been for his powers and his healing factor. The force of the blonde Mega Digimon's attack broke through his defense. As a result, an Alchomon positioned his body so that he met Lucemon in the air and grabbed him and slammed his hard skull against Lucemon's. A 2-fist combo followed afterward. The blonde twisted and slammed his heel into the stomach of the fallen angel before reversing the direction as the blonde alchemist repeated the movement to crash his other heel into Lucemon's stomach. Lucemon gritted his teeth as Alchomon crashed his right fist, his automale one, against Lucemon's face, and Alchomon smirked as he heard the satisfying crack as Lucemon's nose broke. The pair of Digimon continued to fall through the air with only a few feet between themselves and the ground. Alchomon noticed this and began to rapidly punch and kick Lucemon, earning grunts of pain from the holy Digimon. Now to finish this! Alchomon roared and grabbed Lucemon by his ankles and flipped through the air as fast he could to build up momentum, and upon reaching the ground Alchomon positioned his body so that Lucemon touched the ground first, by being slammed down on his back with bone-shattering force. Lucemon's back arched, and his eyes widened from the pain. Alchomon rose from his feet, and then jumped back and then clapped his hands together, and slammed them on the ground. Blue lightning sparked along the surface of the brown earth before the ground in front of the blonde Mega tore open as the largest earth fist Alchomon could manage to make formed before diving down towards Lucemon. Lucemon groaned as looked up. He then saw a small object descending upon him. Said object grew larger as it descended, and Lucemon could only narrow his eyes as he saw the large earthen fist. Oh, how I hate that Alchomon! The platinum blonde Digimon scowled before the fist crashed down upon him, leaving a large crater, and created a large cloud of dust and dirt accompanied by a loud boom upon contact with Alchomon's opponent. Alchomon panted before standing up to his feet and dusting himself off. Alchomon then calmed his breathing and his heart rate before looking back at the dust cloud where he struck Lucemon. He's been staying down too long. What is that devious demon lord doing? Alchomon muttered to himself. Suddenly he felt a large pulse of energy before a beam of golden-white energy shot out of the dust cloud, and then a purple-black energy beam accompanied it. The 2 beams twirled around each other to form a double helix before they joined together and expanded into a sphere. Lucemon Digivolved too. Lucemon grew significantly taller, around the same height as Alchomon. His long platinum blonde hair took on a slightly darker shade and reached his mid-back in terms of length. His sky-blue eyes became sharper and more menacing as they achieved a calculating and darker look in them, and they already had in his previous form. His tunic was replaced with a set of clothing. The chest area, to just below the waist, was white with a golden crest in the center of the chest area that looked similar to that of the sun. His arms were covered with long sleeves that were pitch black with a red insignia along its length, and the sleeves were also red from the wrist to the middle of the forearm, and the edge of the sleeves were lined with gold. White gloves, each with a golden tattoo of some sort on the back, covered Lucemon's hands. Each hand had black claw-like nails. 2 white and gold belts crossed over each other to form an X around Lucemon's waist. His pants were pure black that had a golden pattern that extended from the hips to the knee area. His pants were tucked into golden and white knee-high boots. There were a pair of golden bands around the ankle area of his boots and had a pair of golden wings attached to each band. A pair of wings, one was a white dove wing and the other a leathery bat wing extended from his skull through his blonde hair. The final characteristic of Lucemon's new form was that there were 5 pairs of wings extending from his back, one a white, angelic dove wing and the other a dark, leathery bat wing. Lucemon Chaos Mode. The sphere of light and dark energy expanded before bursting, and Alchomon had to shield his eyes from the brightness of the resulting explosion. When the light died down, Alchomon felt an unbelievable power coming from where the sphere was. Nanny? Alchomon's golden eyes widened as he saw the figure floating in the air. Lucemon's new form flew down and touched down a few feet in front of Alchomon. Hello, Alchomon. It's been so long since I used this form. The last time I used this was when I fought Fanglongmon. Lucemon cracked his joints. What? Your power. It's unreal, Alchomon said, more to himself than to Lucemon Chaos Mode. Why, thank you, Alchomon. Though I should warn you, You might die today instead of the other way like you proclaimed earlier. The blonde demonic angel smiled. Alchomon took a step back just as Lucemon took a step forward. I am the fallen angel. I am the final demon lord, the sin of pride. I am Lucemon chaos mode. Lucemon roared before Lucemon rushed forth. Fanglongmon, I may need some help now, but I don't think you'll make it. Time. Alchomon spoke through the mental link Fanglongmon established with him. Alchomon clapped his hands and slammed them on the ground, and 1,000 fists of earth flew forth. But when they all clashed with Lucemon, they all shattered as Lucemon released a burst of energy from within his body. Alchomon stood up before clapping his hands as he saw Lucemon jump into the air and charge up 10 superheated spheres of heated energy in the shape of a cross. Alchomon put his hands together and split them apart as a blue sphere of alchemic energy formed. Alchomon put all his power into what he knew would be his last attack as he watched Lucemon ready his attack. Alchemic Burst, Grand Cross, with Fanglongmon in the digital world's core. The bronze-scaled dragon was healing the core and was nearly finished, his DG cores using whatever power they could muster to aid in its healing. However, he suddenly felt a pull on his mind as he heard Alchomon talking through their mental link. Fanglongmon, I may need some help now, but I don't think you'll make it in time. Fanglongmon's eyes widened before looking at the core, still damaged but still required healing. He couldn't abandon the core, but he couldn't abandon his friend either. Fanglongmon roared in anguish before slamming his claws into the earth. Kyuso the dragon of the center cursed. Shinjuku Hypnos towers. In a large room containing a mass of technology, the monster makers were typing on colorful keyboards. In the center of the room was a large mechanized structure that looked something like an arch or gateway. Entering digital coordinates, Daisy said. Activating the digital matrix portal, Curly typed away before pressing a flashing green button. The inside of the arch suddenly glowed as a swirling mass of purple and pink formed. Okay, the arc is synthesizing into real-world matter in 3, 2, 1. Jianyu pressed the red button and then the arc burst through the portal in the arc before the arc landed on the ground with a dying hum before releasing a hiss. The cockpit opened up and the Tamers and their Digimon climbed out with Calumon. Henry, Susie, Otiu Yasan. Susie and Henry were suddenly enveloped in a hug from their father. Then Yamaki walked up, with the other parents of the Tamers appeared trailed behind him. The parents immediately rushed to their children's sides and hugged the shit out of them, while some parents, *Kazu and Kenta scolded them, but were still happy to know they were safe. Naruto, Doraemon and Gatomon stood off to the side with Rio and Monodramon. Having parents must be nice, Naruto commented. You're an orphan, aren't you? Rio asked. Naruto looked down with a frown, but nodded. The brown-haired boy remained silent before looking at the blonde shinobi. Well, my Okachan died when I was young, so all I had was my Otosan to look after me, so I kind of get what you're going through. Just shut up, Naruto said. He really didn't like the topic of this conversation. However, his conversation with Rio was ended when all the parents and Yamaki stood in front of him. The parents looked down at him before bowing their heads. Arigato for watching our children, Naruto. Jianyu spoke on their behalf. Naruto smirked and waved his hand. No thanks are needed, they are my friends, I protect those precious to me. It's a promise I made to myself, and will continue to make, the Kyubi Jinchuriki replied. In celebration of their safe return, Hypnos had sponsored a party made just for them. The Tamers and the Digimon dug in, famished and parched, and hadn't realized it until they watched how much they were eating and drinking. Take as much you like, you guys deserve it, the blonde head of Hypnos said. Naruto smirked as he watched Calumon try to delve into Doraemon's heap of grilled cheese sandwiches. Naruto raised his ceramic cup filled with hot chocolate. After all, it was the winter months, so it was rather cold. However, he paused when he heard a cracking sound. Looking at the cup, Naruto spied a long crack starting at the mouth of the cup and stretching a few centimeters down the cup. The thing about the crack that intrigued Naruto was that it shaped itself into a curved snake-like shape, somewhat like the symbol on Alchomon's cloak. Naruto frowned. I'm not very superstitious, but Naruto could only wonder just what was going on in the digital world. Digital world, the void. Lucemon Chaos Mode chuckled to himself as he felt the power coursing through his body and looked in front of him. Alchomon was panting and covered with cuts and scrapes, his clothes cut in some place, and there was a long bleeding slash along his arm. But luckily his healing factor was healing it, albeit it was slower due to his weakened state. Time to die. Alchomon Lucemon chuckled as the sin of pride rushed forth. Paradise Lost Puck. Alchomon stood to his feet and raised his arms to deflect most of the flurry of punches that aimed to damage his body. But then Lucemon twisted in a 180-degree angle so that he faced backwards and kicked Alchomon, breaking through his guard and sending him skyward, and the flat of his boot crashed into the alchemist's chin. Alchomon flew into the air, flipping all the way, before he was stopped as Lucemon appeared beneath his upside-down form. Alchomon gripped Akemon's legs with his arms and held his hands in place so that Alchomon couldn't clap. With his limbs locked in place, Alchomon and Lucemon dropped down from the force of gravity, Alchomon falling head first. Alchomon couldn't move and he couldn't counter. He was too weak to be able to survive this blow. Closing his eyes, Alchomon accepted his fate. The blonde thought about his armored guardian that was killed by Beelzemon and smiled. Alphonse, guess I'll be joining you soon enough. And the two mega-level Digimon crashed into the ground. Chapter 24, Battle of the Gods. The clock ticked and talked on the nearby wall as the Tamers and their partners, along with Impmon and Calumon, watched Uzumaki in his face as he prepared to question the children about their time in the digital world. So, what information of the digital world do you have for me? The blonde head of Hypnos asked. Naruto tilted his head. I don't believe we had made any arrangement to tell you about the digital world before our absence from the real world, the shinobi inquired. True, but you guys owe me. I helped get you guys out of there. He does have a good point, Blondie Impmon stated, earning a glare from the blonde. You're not helping. Never said I would, the scarf-wearing Digimon replied with a shrug. And Rio, you were on missing persons for quite some time until we had finally given up after a few weeks of searching for you. I should call your Ota-san for you, Uzumaki told Rio. I'd prefer you not do that. Yet Rio stated before looking at Monodramon. Your Ota-san is very strict. Probably knew about Monodramon and planned to take him away from you, huh? Rika asked her ex-boyfriend. Rio remained silent, but answered Rika's statement with a nod. I see. Well, I will postpone that phone call, Uzumaki said as he played with his cigarette lighter. Mister, can me and Lopman go to the park with Ota-san? Suzy asked. The group present sweat dropped at Suzy's inability to notice how serious Uzumaki was. The blonde man turned to Janyu, who was sporting an amused grin on his face. Janyu, you handle this, the blonde man said. Suzy jumped to her feet, Lopman being held by her throat as her tamer dragged her away to go to the park with her father, who had approved of the venture. When the two Wongs left, Uzumaki sighed. And that is why I will never have kids, Uzumaki said, so that I don't have to deal with those kinds of situations. That's not your call, mister. Everyone turned to see the red-haired Riley glaring at her boyfriend when outside of work. Uzumaki's sweat dropped. Do we really have to have this conversation again, Riley? He asked. Riley's eyes narrowed as she walked up to the taller man. And do you know who always wins said argument? You, the head of Hypnos replied with a downcast look. The red-haired computer genius patted her boyfriend on the head. That's right, and with that she went back to the computer to shop online. The shades-wearing man turned back to the Tamers, Impmon and Calumon, who were all sporting devilish grins aimed towards him. He raised an eyebrow in confusion. What? He asked. Their smiles grew wider. Your whip, they chorused. Uzumaki sighed louder at the fact before returning to the topic he was discussing. Yeah, so returning to the topic of discussion. Digital world, tell me what it's like, he demanded. Well, the digital world is composed of 4 quadrants. The north, east, west, and south. Each quadrant is ruled by one of the 4 sovereign Digimon, or gods of the digital world. The north is ruled by Abominmon the turtle, the east by Azulongmon the dragon, the west by Biomerge the tiger, and the south by Zhuqiaomon the phoenix. We landed in the southern quadrant, which just happened to be where Zhuqiaomon ruled and where he had taken Calumon, Henry explained as he pointed to the cream-puffed Digimon. Sounds like the legend of the 4 guardians of the earth, Uzumaki mused. That's what I thought too, Naruto stated. Continue. Uzumaki gestured to the Tamers. Rika decided to take her try at explaining. Okay, so like Henry said, the digital world is made up 4 quadrants and ruled by one of the 4 sovereigns. However, there exists a 5th, the dragon of the center, known as Fanglongmon, and is the true god of the digital world. He governs over every single Digimon, and is also the most powerful sovereign Digimon, Rika explained. Uzumaki's eyes widened at the prospect of a large dragon god. Have you all met these sovereigns? The head of Hypnos asked. The Tamers nodded. Hi, though Naruto and Doraemon are the only ones to have met Fanglongmon, Rika added. Naruto and Doraemon nodded in confirmation to Rika's statement. Interesting. Now, before the time of the sovereigns, there was a time where in the early stages of the digital world there lived the early digital lifeforms known as Diginomes and could perform miraculous works inside or outside the digital world. Gilman's creation from Takato's drawing would be an example of such. Naruto started. Then the first Digimon were made where there was an ancient program known as the X program which you used in the Juggernaut X. There were a few Digimon that built up an immunity to the X program, which was to kill off any unnecessary data, which during that time were the first Digimon. This immunity was known as the X antibody. Doraemon and his late friend, Ryudomon, were holders of the X antibody. Naruto pointed at the ruby-red crystal in the center of Doraemon's forehead. I see. Very interesting. So the X program was made before the Reaper. Yamaki mused quietly to himself so that the children and Digimon couldn't hear his murmurings. Kazu, didn't you take pictures while we were there? Kenta asked the visor-wearing Tamer. Kazu's eyes widened in realization. Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. Everyone watched as Kazu opened the backpack he had brought with him to the digital world and rummaged through it before yanking out a red digital camera. Kazu then pressed the on button and watched as the device activated itself. The purple Democrat Arkansas-wielding Tamer then went to the camera's media area and clicked on the icon to view pictures, only for no pictures to show up. Hey, what happened to all my pictures? Kazu exclaimed. Everyone looked as Kazu scrolled through the picture area and saw only sheets of black that indicated an empty file. That's a digital camera, right? Yamaki asked. Everyone looked up and nodded. Yes, so? Kazu responded rudely, obviously annoyed with how his great photos were lost to him. Well, when we activated the portal to get you children home, in order for it to work we needed to use some electromagnetic waves to keep the portal stable. Maybe the waves caused your camera's memory to wipe itself out, Yamaki hypothesized. The Tamers blinked. The who with the what now? Yamaki's sweat dropped. Do you gakis even pay attention in school? A nervous chuckle spread throughout the room as the Tamers scratched their heads in embarrassment. The Digimon all looked at the children with confused looks. Isn't that the point of getting an education? The digital monsters thought. Oh, also we think we should let you know this. Yamaki Naruto spoke, causing the group and Yamaki to pause as they watched the blonde. While we were there, we were wondering, since you are a computer genius and are part of an organization that has been around since the early computer inventions, Naruto's blue eyes narrowed as he stared into Yamaki's dark sunglasses. Do you know anything about something called the D-Reaper? Yamaki's brown eyes widened beneath his shades and he grabbed Naruto by the shoulders and gripped them tightly. Where did you hear about that? Who told you about the D-Reaper? That is classified information. Shibumi told us, Takato answered in Naruto's stead. The two blondes looked at Takato before back at each other. Yamaki let go of Naruto and stepped back. Alright, well, I'll try to explain this as easily as I can. It began 30 years ago, Yamaki started before continuing. The Reaper program was created in the late 1970s, allegedly by the United States Department of Defense, before Digimon and even the Diginomes, as Naruto had pointed out, which appeared in the early 1980s. It was designed so that whenever the number of digital lifeforms surpassed a set amount, it would delete them to return the digital world back to a state of nothingness, in order to prevent the digital world from being overloaded. However, when it was written, the digital world had a very small RAM size, and while the network has grown exponentially, the D-Reaper's threshold is still based on that early, tiny figure. With nothing to do at the time, the D-Reaper program went dormant, and remained deep within the recesses of the net. Yamaki adjusted his sunglasses before he fished out his cigarette lighter, and began to play with it, as he usually did. At about this time, the Creeper virus infected ARPANET, the network belonging to the Department of Defense. It was deleted by the Reaper program, which was allegedly created for only this purpose. Yamaki looked to see if the children were still paying attention. Seeing that they were, he continued. In 1980, the Artificial Life Research Project Tiara began operations. However, the Reaper program causes mass genocide of Tiara's virtual lifeforms whenever they multiply beyond a certain amount of memory. Throughout the 1980s, the SIGINT system known as Echelon began operations under the leadership of the United States Department of National Security, which built communications bases in various nations across the globe. It is thought that the self-defense program used by Echelon was a forerunner of the D-Reaper, or the program itself. Well, it seems the Reaper program gained a mind of its own from Shibumi's explanation. He told us that the Reaper began to destroy the Diginome when it picked up their data signatures. Upon nearly driving them to extinction, Shibumi told us that it was during that time that the monster makers, well actually just Shibumi, had managed to finally create the Digimon. Upon doing so, Shibumi created an algorithm which was in the form of a blue card. Naruto fished out the blue card from his deck of Digimon cards and showed it to Yamaki. The blue card was used to allow the Digimon to go beyond their regular boundaries, and as a result, he created the first mega-level Digimon, the Sovereigns, and apparently Fanglongmon as well, who well exceeded his original boundaries. As a result, the Digimon were able to put the Reaper into a dormant state. Knowing that the Reaper might return, the Sovereigns, well Zhuqiaomon and Azulongmon in particular, changed what they called the catalyst, the light of Digivolution, the light that causes Digimon to digivolve, into a single entity. Calumon. The cream-puffed Digimon looked up upon hearing his name, and blinked his large green eyes. Interesting, the Digimon are much smarter than they appear, since the ones that bioemerge are usually rampaging beasts, Yamaki stated as he continued to play with his cigarette lighter. Hi, and that's pretty much what I was told in combination of the knowledge I got from the sovereigns in Shibumi. But you see, the D-Reaper has reawakened and is now trying to delete every single Digimon within the digital world. Luckily we were able to hold it back a bit longer, so we bought the Digimon some time. But we need a way to kill the D-Reaper before it destroys the digital world and everything in it. Yamaki pondered as he reflected on the information Naruto just told him. Well, the truth is that the D-Reaper cannot be killed. He frowned when he saw the surprised and downcast looks that followed on the Tamers and the Digimon's faces. But their heads shot up at that wonderful word. We might be able to reduce its size. If what you said is true, then the D-Reaper, after years of being dormant, would have grown in size and power. As a result, it would be near unstoppable. But what we need is to be able to reduce its size and change back to its original programming size. How would we do that? The Tamers asked. Yamaki yanked a cigarette out his pocket and then lit it. Taking a drag, the dirty blonde-haired man gave a confident smirk to the Tamers. Leave that. To the grown-ups, Yamaki turned and then left the room. You Gakis and your Digimon can go home now. Go spend some time off. You deserve it. The Tamers smiled widely and nodded before taking off with their Digimon. Impmon stayed behind as he watched the group of friends run off without a care in the world. The scarf-wearing Digimon sighed. Hey Impmon, the purple imp looked up to see Naruto, Doraemon and Gatomon watching him. You coming or not? The rookie's green eyes widened before he closed his eyes and chuckled. Yeah, don't get your data in a twist. Digital World Southern Quadrant. Deep in the mouth of the tunnel, there lay a mountain of rock that was formed by Zhuqiaomon's attack. The rocks rumbled and tumbled as they began to shift from the movement of the D-Reaper's attempts to escape. Get ready everyone, the chaos will be free in a matter of time, Azulongmon warned. Aye lads, when the mangy cur of a digital organism rises, don't hold back. Give it everything you got and don't attack like a bunch o' pansies. Ibamomon's left head said. The Mega Digimon in the sky and on the land all tensed as they felt the earth rumble beneath their feet. 3 Biomerge counted down. 2 Zhuqiaomon's wings coated themselves in flames before he took to the skies beside Azulongmon. 1 The 4 sovereigns voiced, and then there was a large earthquake before the hole in the ground exploded and a large fountain of red-orange gelatinous substance spewed from the mouth of the hole. The substance then curved away from the Digimon, and landed with a resounding squelch as it began to form into a large behemoth of red-orange substance. The D-Reaper morphed into the shape of a large mound equal to the size of many of the Digimon combined, and its power equaled that of a sovereign. The D-Reaper growled before releasing what sounded like gurgled roar before racing forth. Arms stretched from its body as it aimed to delete the Digimon. After all, its primary function was to reduce the size of data that had exceeded their original boundaries. And the Digimon well broke their boundaries. A large shield of flame formed and deflected the arms as Zhuqiaomon flapped his wings. The flames dispersed, and the Digimon charged. A group of Wargreymon clumped together before raising their arms to the heavens. Fire and earth swirled together as the forces of the earth condensed into one large sphere in each of their hands. Terra Force! The mega-level form of Agumon roared, and with a swing of their arms, the multiple spheres of flames blasted into the D-Reaper. The Chaos Incarnate roared as it was struck as a large hole formed where it was struck, but then it healed itself. Aurora Force! Azulongmon released a large lightning bolt in the shape of a dragon and shocked the D-Reaper and sent it flying through the air. But the D-Reaper formed a pair of arms and stabbed them into the ground and halted its movement before sending out large globs of its form that morphed into the shapes of birds. The D-Birds flew through the air and the Digimon made whatever effort they could muster to avoid them. However, a couple of Ravemon and Rosamon were struck and their data absorbed. The D-Birds were then struck by a missile. Giga Missile! Some Metalgarurumon shouted and blasted the birds to nothing. Blazing Helix! The Sovereign of the South released twin streams of fire that twisted around each other to form the double helix. However, the D-Reaper rejoined its 2 separate pieces into its single body and swirled into a circular-shaped shield and took the attack head-on, and took no damage. A large pair of jaws suddenly formed on the orange-red digital behemoth. The jaws opened wide as they raced towards the group of Digimon. Web Wrecker! Diaboromon charged their cannons in their chests, and fired off multiple rounds and blasted the jaws of gelatin only for no damage to be done, as the speed the jaws moved merely deflected the attacks and caused some of the Digimon to get hit and deleted by the attack. A large paw smashed down on the ground and Biomerge's white aura shone brightly before he took off. His claws shone as he brought them down and sliced the jaws through and through, cleaving them from the main body only for the jaws to take a life on their own and morph into a draconic creature. The D-Dragon roared before flying through the air and crashed its body into that of a Hercules Kabuterimon. The insected Digimon flew through the air from the attack before flapping its wings. Mega Electro Shocker! A swarm of the Mega level of Tentomon banded together and released a large sphere of red electricity. The D-Dragon roared before opened its jaws and released an energy blast that met the attack head-on and created an explosion. The main body of the D-Reaper suddenly formed arms and used the smoke cloud from the explosion to its advantage to send the arms and the D-Dragon through the cloud and attack the Digimon. The Hercules Kabuterimon swarm was attacked and only 4 out of the 10 survived the attack. The D-Dragon roared as it took to the skies and released energy blasts. A Wargreymon tried to use its brave shield to defend itself, but the attack cut through the chrome Digizord like it was paper and blew a hole through Wargreymon's stomach. The other Wargreymon growled as they saw one of their own fall. Spinning dreadfully fast, 2 of the Wargreymon launched themselves at the D-Dragon. Great Tornado! The yellow tornadoes flew forth and impaled the dragon in the head and chest and out the other end. The other 9 Wargreymon then each came down and sliced the dragon's limbs off. Dramon Killer! And their claws cleaved the D-Dragon to pieces. Crimson Flame! Alchomon released a stream of red fire from its maw and burned away what remained of the D-Dragon and nodded to the Dramon Digimon. The Alchomon's eyes widened suddenly along with those of the Wargreymon as an arm of gelatinous material impaled through the bird Digimon's wing. Alchomon released a screech before a Hercules Kabuterimon sliced through the arm and freed the bird Digimon and supported it. The Hercules Kabuterimon then grabbed Alchomon and spun. Using amazing strength, the insected Digimon threw the Mega-level bird Digimon through the fray towards the main body. An aura of flame of golden light surrounded Alchomon before the light exploded outwards as the Alchomon made contact. Starlight Explosion! The attack struck, but Alchomon's suicide attack made no effect as the D-Reaper had smothered the Alchomon and crushed the bird in its body as well as absorbing the attack. The D-Reaper then stretched upwards as the Digimon all fired their attacks at it before it stretched lengthwise and formed a wall-like structure. Spikes then formed along the surface of the D-Reaper's wall-like form before being rocketed through the air as one fired. A Diaboromon was impaled through the head and then smothered in the D-Reaper's gelatin, crushed and absorbed. The Diaboromon had been deleted. Suddenly the sound of objects whistling through the air met the Digimon's ears and they all began to dodge for their lives, literally, as spikes sped through the air and aimed to impale and delete the Digimon. Many Digimon were struck down. A Vikemon took a deep breath and released a loud roar as it jumped into the air. Its hammer, Mjolnir, met the ground with a thunderous sound and the earth cracked and split as a large chasm opened up beneath the D-Reaper. The large data-eating monster nearly fell through, but recovered only for it to be struck by a numerous amount of Terra Force attacks. The monster roared in what seemed to be pain before a large amount of missiles, made from Metal Garurumon's Ice Wolf Claw, struck and froze a good portion of its body. A few Vikemon moved across the land with terrifying speed for such bulky creatures and slammed their hammers against the frozen portions and reduced the size of the D-Reaper. A portion of the remaining Alchomon flew through the air and released streams of red fire upon the D-Reaper. Mega Electroker! Red electric spheres broke the sound barrier as they were blasted from the mouths of the Hercules Kabuterimon. A few D-birds formed and took the hit for the main body as they were destroyed upon impact. Crimson Flame! They screeched, and the flames impaled the D-Reaper. The D-Reaper fought back though, and spikes impaled a multitude of Digimon. What were once thousands of Digimon were reduced to the hundreds in a matter of hours of endless fighting. The Digimon refused to back down though. The Sovereigns glared before they each formed their attacks. Blazing Helix! Zhuqiaomon took a deep breath and twin streams of fire twisted to form a double helix crashed into the D-Reaper's form, sending it back. Aurora Force! Azulongmon roared, cumulonimbus clouds gathered over the D-Reaper's form, and then a large lightning bolt in the shape of a dragon crashed down with an earth-shattering boom and electrocuted the Digimon. Biomerge leapt into the air and dove down, his aura of white shining brightly. Kongu! The white tiger roared before going straight through the D-Reaper, and suddenly its form became metal and the gelatinous behemoth became a large mountain of solid steel that quickly began to rust. Abomination, the oldest of the sovereigns next to Fanglongmon, drew in a deep breath and both heads opened their jaws. Columns of deep violet flame rocketed from their jaws and swirled to form one gigantic blast of heated oxygen. Suryuha / Double Dragon Wave! The heads of the turtle of the north chorused as the attack struck the D-Reaper, and a large explosion formed as a result. The mushroom cloud that resulted was so large it made the other sovereigns widen their eyes in awe. Abomination, when did you get so strong? Zhuqiaomon asked. I've always been stronger than you three, I just never had a chance to show ya. The right head smirked. The smoke cloud died down, and revealed the metallic pieces of the rusted coating that covered the D-Reaper. The gelatin behemoth was splattered everywhere as puddles or droplets of its larger self. Nice, Biomerge commented with a toothy grin, only for the grin to quickly disappear as the D-Reaper's residue quickly began to join back together and regenerate into the large behemoth it was just before. Woman quickly took a few steps forward and looked to the skies. The sky suddenly turned black and dark clouds gathered. Kakuhyo/black hail. True to its name, pellets of ice, black as pitch, fell from the heavens and fell onto the chaos. The black hail began to burn through the D-Reaper's gelatinous form, and caused it to spasm and roar in pain as it tried to escape. Terra Force! A Wargreymon group roared before throwing their large orbs of burning oxygen and energy. The attacks impacted and burned away sections of the D-Reaper's form. Ice Wolf Claw! Every single compartment on the bodies of the Metalgarurumon opened up and missiles flew through the air and impacted with the D-Reaper, freezing multiple portions of its body. The ice rattled before shattering, however. As soon as that happened, the atmospheric temperature began to drop rapidly as the herd of Vikemon howled to the heavens. The storm of black hail still affected the D-Reaper as it began to freeze over. Arctic Blizzard! They howled and ice formed on the D-Reaper and froze as it placed. The Vikemon rushed forth and raised their hammers, their morning stars, each named like the hammer of Thor, Mjolnir, and slammed and threw them towards the D-Reaper with explosive force as they impacted with the frozen behemoth. The hammers flew back towards their owner's hands as the ice shattered along with the D-Reaper, and the frozen areas of the D-Reaper began to be pummeled by the black hail. Once they saw the ice shatter from the hail, the bondwoman growled and the skies halted their hailstorm and the black clouds parted. Did we do it? Biomerge asked. I think so, Azulongmon replied. Keeping their guard up, the Digimon scanned the area. Biomerge's superior vision caught sight of a blob of the chaos incarnate about the size of a Biomerge. Look over there is still a piece of it remaining. The Tiger of the West roared. The piece of the chaos began to grow larger as Biomerge neared it. Accelerated mitosis of its data-made cells began to occur, and it quickly grew to the size of the Tiger Sovereign. Biomerge raised his claws and slashed the D-Reaper to shreds only for it to regenerate and grow larger before it returned to its original gargantuan size, which was about the size of Azulongmon and Biomerge combined. Suryaha! Biomerge roared and released the twin streams of purple flame from his jaws. The flames morphed into the reptilian beast and crashed into the D-Reaper, and a large explosion resulted. Knowing the D-Reaper would have most likely survived, a large amount of Halsmon that had gathered quickly joined together and spun. Tempest Wing! A large tornado formed and cut through the earth as it made its way towards the D-Reaper. The smoke cloud cleared to reveal the D-Reaper had spun into a funnel shape to spread out the force of the impact of Biomerge's Suryaha and not explode into millions of pieces. The twister of data-eating substance reared its ugly bulbous form and released a gurgling roar before diving into the ground and burrowed its way underneath the wind vortex and exploded up into the heart of the tornado and ate the Halsmon. The armored Digimon released loud screeches as they were crushed and their data absorbed, and the tornado was dispersed. Diaboromon and Megacedraman flew through the air, released beams of energy and ice, but they were easily avoided before they were also taken down by a large wave of D-Dragons. The Sovereigns could only watch in shock as the Digimon were absorbed and killed before their eyes. Sonic Zephyr! The Sovereign of the South screeched. Zhuqiaomon quickly saved a large group of Digimon from the D-Dragons by slashing at them with his flames-covered claws. D-birds suddenly formed, but Azulongmon struck them all down with great accuracy as lightning bolts from his aura destroyed them. Wargreymon's Terra Force did nothing even when they burned their ways through the D-Reaper's form, only for the beast to regenerate and grab them with its long arms and pull them into its body, where they were quickly destroyed and reduced to data flakes. The D-Reaper then turned to the Sovereigns and the few hundred Digimon that still remained. The Digimon were exhausted from their attacks and constantly dodging and counter-striking, only for their attacks to have barely done anything. The D-Reaper then turned and looked up at the Earth floating in the sky. Using the ability to scan data, which the Earth and the sky was composed of, it found organisms that had exceeded their boundaries and prepared itself to take care of those organisms as well. The D-Reaper quickly morphed its shape and became long and tall before launching itself upwards, stretching and twisting. The Digimon quickly tried to stop it as they realized the D-Reaper's path. Stop the chaos. It's heading for the real world. Biomerge roared before he used his extreme speed and then turned the D-Reaper to metal. The metal coating rusted the D-Reaper in place, and then Azulongmon lashed out with his tail, and Biomerge along with the Vikemon horde rushed forth and crashed their bodies into the bottom half. The top half that was hit by Azulongmon's powerful tail flew a good distance away, while the bottom half was sent skidding across the desert lands of the southern quadrant. The metal of the D-Reaper suddenly began to melt away as the D-Reaper increased its temperature. No. Impossible. It's adapting to those situations, that's how it's surviving for so long. Ebonwoman cursed as he took note of the sudden increase in the chaos temperature. The sudden shift between states of liquid and solid in order to take on heavy attacks when solid and to bend and twist to avoid when in liquid, as well as to do a bit of both when it wanted to remain in its regular gelatinous form. The D-Reaper roared before it began to twist and spin, forming a vortex of red-orange. The sound barrier broke with a powerful boom as the two halves continued to stretch, mingling with one another as they rejoined. It continued to rise before there was a giant pulse of data at the tip of the spiraling twister of chaos. Being made to destroy things that exceeded their original size, the D-Reaper sensed there were organisms that exceeded their original boundaries inside that sphere that was released beams of pink data. The D-Reaper's now adaptable data released another pulse of data as it continued to rise, its twister-like form increasing in diameter. Aurora Force, Blazing Helix, Sonic Roar, Suryuha, Terra Force, Ice Wolf Claw, Mjolnir, Mega Electroshocker, Crimson Flame, Web Wrecker, Mega Ice Blast. All these attacks and more mixed together to form one giant blast that attacked the D-Reaper. But the D-Reaper suddenly accelerated its growth. With that, a D-Dragon head grew from the side where the attacks were about to hit, and the D-Dragon was huge, nearly equaling Azulongmon in size, and opened its maw. Its jaws stretching beyond regular mouth stretching capabilities, and then it swallowed the entire attack. The Digimon were in shock and felt the energy from the D-Reaper increase before it used the energy as assimilated and released it as a high-energy matrix that bent the very fabric of time-space. The beam cut through the air and neared the floating sphere that represented the Earth. Upon making contact, a large pink and purple portal opened up. The swirling vortex that cut between the real world and the digital world opened up, and with that the head of the D-Reaper made its way to the realm of humans, the Void. Lucemon Chaos Mode walked out of the smoke cloud that resulted from the finisher from his Paradise Lost punch attack. Lucemon chuckled quietly to himself as he clutched his prize in his hand. The metallic right arm of Alchomon, the destroyer of demon lords, one of the greatest mega-level Digimon to have ever walked the digital world. And he is no more, though I do owe to him to be able to get me to scar, Lucemon thought as he looked at the large slash along the length of his chest. It is said that skin will always heal when left undisturbed, but Alchomon had aimed for that particular area and slashed with his automail blade so many times that the healing factor did nothing to heal it completely, and could only heal it enough that it would still leave behind a scar. A worthy opponent, that Alchomon, Lucemon commented before turning and raising Alchomon's body from the ground and watched as it began to dissolve into data flakes. Lucemon Chaos Mode held out his gloved hand and absorbed the data, but had it so that he could keep the arm. A trophy to the victor, and Lucemon then walked off, picking up Alchomon's red cloak and draped it around himself. Raising the hood, Lucemon smiled. If that telepathic link did any good, I should be greeted with that mangy dragon soon enough. And then, I shall finally have my revenge against Fanglongmon. But if I do, I will still be trapped here, so that leaves one question. How do I get out of here? Lucemon asked himself. The fallen angel continued to traverse the vast, endless area where Fanglongmon lived, the endless void, for a few more minutes. No wonder he's so boring, he lives in an endless area. Lucemon insulted the mighty bronze dragon before he felt a pulse of energy that was felt across the void. Seems he's done with the healing the core. Good, can't rule the digital world without having a digital world to rule over, Lucemon said to himself with a large grin that threatened to split his face. Behind him, a large swirling mass of gold and white opened up. Lucemon smirked as he turned in order to face the portal. Out of the portal came a large, bronze-scaled limb, followed by a second limb. Then the head of the reptilian god as well as the rest of his body. The great dragon growled as he stepped out of the portal. His deep orange eyes glowed within their sockets, and the digi-cores surrounding his form pulsed with power. His bronze-gold scales shone even though the skies were dark with the clouds Fanglongmon created. Flashes of blue and gold lightning streaked across the sky as the angry dragon of the center stared into Lucemon's sky-blue eyes. Fanglongmon's tail crashed onto the ground in rage, creating a large crater in its shape. Fanglongmon looked around to see a figure wearing Alchomon's cloak. Alchomon, you're all right. Thank goodness you're all right. You used the link and it sounded like you were about to die. Good job, old friend. Does that mean you defeated Lucemon? The bronze-scaled dragon asked. The dragon took a step back in confusion as he saw Alchomon laughing beneath the hood of the cloak. However, his orange eyes widened as the figure threw back the hood and revealed the face of the sin of pride. Fanglongmon, good to see you. Lucemon smiled to annoy Fanglongmon, and it worked. The true god of the digital world slammed his front limbs into the ground and a flash of gold raked the earth as it sped towards Lucemon. The Sin of Pride cartwheeled out of the way and the streak continued to stretch on until it stopped, creating a large explosion, the resulting shockwave reaching all the way to Lucemon's location. "I see you haven't lost your magic touch," Lucemon mused. Fanglongmon bared his sharp teeth and roared. "You killed Alchomon," Fanglongmon growled. "Alchomon?" Lucemon questioned before smirking. "Oh yes, Alchomon, the blonde alchemist. He put me through the ringer and nearly would have defeated me had I not digivolved into my chaos mode." Lucemon gestured to his current form before reaching into the cloak and yanking out Alchomon's detached auto-mail arm. "An excellent opponent," Lucemon smirked before throwing the arm towards Fanglongmon. The dragon held out his clawed hand ready to catch it, only for it to disappear as a flash of light and dark energies collided with it in midair. Fanglongmon caught air as he watched the data flakes of the auto-mail arm floated to the ground and dissolved into nothing. Fanglongmon shook with anger, his head bent low. "Aw, is Widow Fanglongmon gonna CWI?" Lucemon teased. However, his body was suddenly struck with killing intent that had enough force to paralyze the inhabitants of an entire quadrant of the digital world. "You will pay for what you've done, Lucemon!" Fanglongmon roared before slamming his claws into the ground. Two streaks of golden light rushed towards Lucemon, who held out his hands and released two beams of dark violet energy. The powers of light and darkness collided with one another. Both Digimon, gods among Digimon, and both wielders of the elements of darkness and light. Truly a battle of the gods. Fanglongmon roared and released a shockwave from it. Lucemon held his ground and merely skidded a few feet back before running towards the dragon. Fanglongmon swiped at the much smaller Digimon, leaving 5 gouges within the earth as Lucemon jumped. "I may not be able to do the full combo, but I'll make you most of it. Paradise Lost Punch." The fallen angel announced the name of his attack before releasing a barrage of punches against Fanglongmon's snout. The dragon of the center scoffed and swiped at Lucemon as if he were a fly and sent him to the ground. The Sin of Pride left an imprint in the ground as he crashed into it. Pulling himself out, Lucemon was able to take to the skies and avoid Fanglongmon's large tail that would have surely hurt if it made contact. However, he failed to remember that the tail could change direction on the dime, and he was suddenly hit with the full force of Huanglong or hard scales. The demon lord halted his movement in the air and then took the shape of a cross in midair. 10 spheres of superheated energy formed in the same shape before being launched. Grand Cross. The attack raced through the air and made contact with Fanglongmon's chest. The dragon of the center was hit with enough force to send him skidding backwards a good few feet before he hit with a punch infused with the power of darkness. The dragon roared in pain as his snout was forced downwards from the attack. Although Huanglong or boasts of absolute hardness, if an attack is strong enough, Fanglongmon will be hurt, and the two only Digimon able to do so were Lucemon and the deceased Alchomon. The dragon growled and lashed out with his claws, but Lucemon quickly barrel-rolled to avoid the attack and then formed an orb of light around himself as Fanglongmon released a column of dark energy from his jaws. The light and dark energies collided and resulted in an explosion, and sent Lucemon flying out of the resulting smoke cloud. "I see you're using your dark energy attacks. I thought you refused to no longer use that element? You are an enemy that is much too powerful for me to have to hold back." Lucemon, Fanglongmon growled. The great dragon raised his claws and brought them down. Streaks of light flew forth. "Dragon Smash!" The golden dragon roared. Lucemon watched the light streaks tear up the earth before joining up beneath his position, and created a beam that shot skyward to his location. Lucemon quickly flew out of the way as the attack formed a hole in the clouds. Grand Cross! The 10 superheated energy spheres raced towards Fanglongmon, but the dragon quickly manipulated the element of the earth, and a large wall formed and protected him. After all, alchemy and ninjutsu cannot match that of a digital god. Fanglongmon then punched the wall, and the slab of rock and mud flew through the air. Lucemon punched it, and it was broken up into the several fragments. Fanglongmon ran swiftly towards his foe and leaped into the air, flipping and bringing down his gigantic tail. Lucemon raised his arms in an X formation and took the tail's slam head-on. He was brought down to the ground, but he was able to remain standing as Fanglongmon continued to apply pressure on his standing form. Lucemon then pushed some light energy into his arms and moved the heavy tail to his side before holding up his hands, and an orb of light and an orb of dark energy formed in each hand. Fanglongmon's eyes widened before they narrowed. Holding up both of his front legs, in the palm of his claws he also held a sphere of light and a sphere of darkness. Both angel and god faced each other before releasing their attacks. Ultimate sacrifice! Lucemon roared. "Taikyoku!" Fanglongmon exclaimed. The two attacks of light and darkness met head-on, and destroyed everything in a 50-mile radius, reducing the earth to the pure whiteness of the void. Fanglongmon rushed forth and reformed the earth where the void with just a thought before grabbing Lucemon in his claws and slamming him into the ground, painfully. Releasing the fallen angel, the dragon of the center opened his jaws and released a sphere of yellow light the size of one his Digicores, which was quite large. Oka! The dragon of earth, light and darkness yelled. The sphere of yellow light then began to rotate and gathered up earth that magically became mud as it touched the sphere. Wind and earth swirled around the sphere before taking off towards the Sin of Pride. Lucemon Chaos Mode could only gaze in amazement at the sheer size and the unimaginable ferocity of the typhoon that the god of Digimon created. Never ceased to amaze, Fanglongmon Lucemon quickly spread his 8-10 wings and took off, fighting against the suction of the twisting vortex of earth and wind. Lucemon quickly formed Grand Cross, but the large amount of mud and earth swirling around it took the brunt of the attack and the typhoon was still standing. Fanglongmon released a roar before the typhoon seemed to spin faster, and Lucemon could no longer resist the wind, and he was drawn into the cyclone of earth. Bombarded with multiple projectiles in the vortex of earth, Lucemon's clothes were tattered along the sleeves with a few cuts and scrapes along his face. Lucemon quickly formed a shield of light energy around him and protected himself. The Okai attack died down, and Fanglongmon had long since noticed the glowing orb of Lucemon's light shield and channeled darkness into his claws and brought the down. Dragon Smash! The attack crashed through the light shield and the Sin of Pride was sent downwards. The fallen angel quickly pulled up and avoided the following claws of darkness. The fallen angel flew up and channeled dark and light energies into his fists, and began to go into an all-out physical assault. Avoiding the gnashing teeth of the dragon of the center, Lucemon flew under the reptile's chin and performed a powerful uppercut to the dragon's chin. Fanglongmon's head snapped straight up from the powerful attack before Lucemon raced to the dragon's chest and became straight as a needle. His feet poised to strike, and strike they did as Fanglongmon was sent back from the powerful double kick. Lucemon then grabbed Fanglongmon by his snout. With great exertion and much channeling of energy, Lucemon hoisted Fanglongmon, much to the dragon's surprise, off his feet and over his head and slammed him down on the ground. Fanglongmon roared in pain as his back met the harsh earth and looked up to see a cross made up of superheated energy spheres. Grand Cross! The Sin of Pride yelled and the attack struck home. Fanglongmon was sent down into the earth from the impact, and created a nice imprint of him. Lucemon then charged a sphere of light in his left hand and a sphere of darkness in his right. He threw down the light sphere and then the darkness followed right after it. Now let's see if chance is on your side, O great god of the digital plane. Ultimate sacrifice. A large cube made of light and dark energies formed, and then there was a giant explosion of energy as the cube exploded. Seems the attack chose to annihilate you, Lucemon smirked as he watched the smoke cloud clear, and there was no trace of the dragon of the center. The earth that was completely dissolved showed the whiteness of the void underneath. However, his eyes widened when he heard a deep voice chuckling behind him. Impossible, how? You forget. I have the power of dimensional travel, Lucemon Fanglongmon stated as the golden portal behind him closed off. And this is my realm. Fanglongmon opened his jaws. Kudai no Kiba / Fang of the Emperor. The great jaws of the dragon of the center closed down on Lucemon Chaos Mode. However, Fanglongmon began to feel resistance as his jaws were being held back. To his surprise, the great dragon found that Lucemon was holding his mouth open with his bare hands, but some of his teeth had impaled the fallen angel through the left shoulder and right foot. I don't give a fuck if this is your realm, along with the rest of the digital world. Fanglongmon felt his jaws rising as Lucemon continued to push up and force his lower jaw down. Will be mine! Lucemon roared before forcing the jaws of the mighty golden dragon apart with enough room for him to fly out and escape. Lucemon quickly shook his arms and legs as he felt the healing factor that all Digimon possessed kick in. However, the bloodstains remained on his clothes and on Fanglongmon's teeth. Lucemon then charged up a sphere of dark energy and let it fly. Fanglongmon quickly ducked and took a deep breath and released a column of golden flames that was actually pure light, but given the appearance of fire. Lucemon swooped down and punched the ground, and a streak of light energy tore up the ground and struck Fanglongmon with a large amount of force, causing the dragon to stumble backwards. Grand Cross! The attack shot forth and crashed into Fanglongmon's face. Fanglongmon growled as his face healed, only to be greeted with the feeling of pain as a column of dark matter energy crashing into his body. 2 more dark energy blasts followed soon after, and Lucemon used an extreme amount of speed to reach Fanglongmon's position before flipping and crashing his heel against his opponent's snout. The blonde demonic angel quickly followed up with a powerful right hook to the side of Fanglongmon's snout, Using the momentum of his powerful punch, Lucemon twisted his body and crashed his heel into one of Fanglongmon's orange eyes. The great dragon released a roar as one of his eyes was struck. The other three narrowed in anger before Fanglongmon roared and released a shockwave from the roar. A stream of dark energy followed after and morphed into the shape of a clawed hand. Lucemon's eyes widened before he flew up to avoid the attack, but the hand followed the trail. After a few seconds of being chased, Lucemon turned around and flapped his bat wings and released a gust of violet wind, and then flapped his angel wings that released a gust of golden wind. The wind struck the hand of dark energy and dispersed it. Fanglongmon flew up, /n. He's a god, of course he can fly, and slashed at Lucemon, who grabbed the hand and stopped its motion. He quickly to attack with his tail, but Lucemon quickly let go of the hand, backflipped out of the reach of both claw and tail. Releasing a tongue of golden flames as a distraction, Fanglongmon quickly held up his front legs and formed a sphere of dark energy in his left clawed foot and a sphere of light in his right. Taikyoku! The attack of light and darkness shot forth. Lucemon had held back the flames with his hands coated in light and dark energies before he felt the flames disperse, and suddenly felt an even more powerful force strike his hands. He looked between his fingers to see a beam of swirling violet, black, and gold being held back by his hands. Thank whatever deity other than Fanglongmon that I had my gloves coated with light and darkness, or I would been toast, Lucemon thought. With a grunt of effort, Lucemon tried his best to hold the attack at bay before channeling as much energy as he could into his hands. Grara! Lucemon quickly pushed the attack upwards, and the attack pierced the heavens before it exploded into an orb of light and dark energy. The resulting shockwave sent both Digimon to the ground from the force of it. Both Digimon growled at each other. You're still as strong as ever. Likewise, Fanglongmon admitted, though the dragon of the center was truly god among Digimon, Lucemon also held a similar position due to his manipulation of the same elements as himself. Dragon Smash! Twin streaks of light shot forth from both of Fanglongmon's claws as he crashed them down into the earth. Lucemon crossed his arms and then forcefully spread them out as a shockwave was darkness countered the attack. Lucemon then jumped into the air and brought down his fists, which created craters in the earth from the impact before two shockwaves of light raced towards the golden bronze dragon. Coating his claws in dark energy, the great dragon slashed at the shockwaves and dispersed them before using his manipulation of the earth, and caused a multitude of boulders to rise from the ground. With a roar, each boulder launched themselves at the sin of pride. Lucemon quickly punched one boulder and shattered it before twisting and slamming the bottom of his boot into another. Performing a duck and roll maneuver, the blonde demonic angel avoided another boulder before fixing himself into a kneeling position before clapping his hands and releasing an arc of dark energy which sliced the fourth boulder in half. Rolling back and lying flat as a board, Lucemon avoided the fifth boulder before performing a cat spring to crash his feet into the approaching sixth boulder, shattering it on impact, and then took a deep breath as he landed on his feet and released a high-pitched screech like that of a bat. The sound waves reached the ears of Fanglongmon, who roared in pain as he was nearly deafened by it, and as such lost his control over the other boulders that were floating around him. The screech continued before Lucemon increased the frequency of the pitch while simultaneously adding a pulse of dark energy to further damage the pain-ridden dragon. However, while doing so, the Sin of Pride noticed that there was a ripple in the air as his sound waves traveled through the air. Lucemon's curiosity was piqued as the ripple in the air disappeared as he ended his screams. Fanglongmon gnashed his teeth together as he attempted to get the ringing sound out of his ears before he was suddenly greeted with the sight of twin spheres, one of light and one of darkness, coming towards him. In his nauseated state, Fanglongmon couldn't simply move to the side and dodge nor counter the attack. Kyuso, the dragon of the center, cursed before the attack struck. Real-world Shinjuku City. Nighttime. One day had nearly passed, since Jeri lived quite a long way from where Hypnos was. Takato had decided to let Jeri spend the night at his place since her mother was still busy working and her little brother and father would have already been asleep at this time. Gilman, although he would have liked to go to Takato's house, decided that he really wanted to sleep in the shed since he liked the smell of fresh air, which surprised Takato since he thought it would be Gilman's dream to be asleep in a place filled with bread. The two preteens decided that they should at least buy Jeri some pajamas for her to sleep in while she was there. After buying a nice pair of pale yellow pajamas, the same color as her Democrat Arkansas, the two headed for the bakery/house where Takato lived. "Are you sure about this, Takato-kun?" Jeri asked as she held Leomon's DG egg. "I'm sure, Jeri-chan. Don't worry, my parents wouldn't mind at all. They actually think I'm antisocial since Kazu and Kenta were like my only true friends back in the day," he said with a chuckle. Swinging the bag containing Jeri's pajamas, Takato stopped when he looked at the brown-haired girl. Jeri had continued walking, but stopped when she realized Takato was staring at her. What? She asked. Is there something on my face? Takato blushed when he realized he had been staring and quickly tried to come up with an excuse before Kami decided to grant him one as the DG egg in her arms jumped. The two tamers watched in awe as the egg continued to jump before the shell cracked. The crack continued to grow larger, and the orange and black egg shattered as a soft red horn stabbed through it. The shell fragments all fell to the ground and disappeared as red data flakes. The baby Digimon before them was small enough to make Calumon look relatively big. It was a large red plushy thing with two black eyes. On its head were three soft horns. It had no mouth, nose, ears. It looked like a giant red blob with three horns and a pair of eyes if you put it simply. Jeri took out her yellow Democrat Arkansas and scanned Leomon's baby form. Punamon, baby Digimon. Its body is composed of a gelatinous substance, and is very squishy, thus making it relatively invulnerable to physical attacks. Its horns cannot do any damage due to their softness. Its only attack is Bubble Blow. Jeri read. Ah, he's so cute, Takato said, poking it. The two laughed as they saw the baby Digimon's body wobble and jiggle from the poke. Puni? Punamon looked confused as to why his tamer, and the other human, was laughing. Punamon's large coal-like eyes blinked before he rubbed his head against Jeri's chest. Jeri giggled as she stroked the little Digimon while Takato scowled at the Digimon as he wished himself to be in that position with Jeri-chan. Punamon then spotted the Democrat Arkansas in Jeri's hand. Puni! The two looked surprised by the sudden outburst as Punamon leaped from Jeri's hands and knocked the Democrat Arkansas from her hands. Jeri and Takato looked at each other, and then at each other as Punamon jumped towards the Democrat Arkansas, since it had no legs. Punamon then turned to Jeri and hopped next to the Democrat Arkansas. What do you want me to do? Jeri asked her baby Digimon. Punamon narrowed its eyes due to the lack of communication between him and the tamer. Punamon touched the Democrat Arkansas and it released a bright yellow light almost automatically. Digivolution. Punamon Digivolved too. A yellow egg of spiraling data formed around the baby Digimon. Punamon grew a bit larger. Red gelatin peeled away to reveal the wire frame formed beneath it. Then skin reattached to the wire frame as it grew orange fur around the skin. Out of the top of the head of the Digivolved Digimon, a large black horn about the size of Gilman's claws in length formed. Large gray-eyed opened widely. The yellow data egg burst open to reveal the entraining Digimon. Cinnamon. Cinnamon blinked and looked around the area before settling his large gray eyes on the much taller Jeri Kato. What happened? Cinnamon bounced across the street, still being a talking head, and stopped in front of a window near a closed shop and saw his new form. Haha, well, look at that, I digivolved. Jeri, did you see that I digivolved? Cinnamon said with excitement as he jumped into Jeri's arms. Why you remember my name? The brown-haired girl asked in surprise. Well, yeah, you're my tamer. I'm supposed to know my tamer's name, right? Cinnamon replied with a grin. Jeri giggled at that and nodded. Hi, I guess so, Jeri said as she turned to Takato. Takato smirked and mouthed out an I told you so. Jeri smiled and nodded as she hugged Cinnamon. Takato and Jeri then continued the walk to Takato's house. Besides, the goggle-headed one said you name before Cinnamon added. Takato's head dropped at Cinnamon calling him Gogglehead, and Jeri just laughed at that. Matsuki Bakery, Takato's house. It was nearly 10 o'clock by the time they reached the door to He Bakery/house, and Takato's parents had increased his curfew time to 11:00 since they now knew about Gilman. The two preteens took off their shoes before walking up towards the stairs. Takato and Jeri then spied Takato's parents sitting at the kitchen table talking about everyday things, like how Takato was such a grown-up now, saving the world, getting a Digimon, the usual talks since he left for the digital world. Kabanwa, Otosan, Okachan. Takato greeted his parents. The two elder Matsukis looked up and smiled at their son. Good to know you're back safe, son, Mr. Matsuki said with a smile as he saw his son for the second time today. Takato, do you want anything to? Oh, and who's your little friend? Mrs. Matsuki said, spying the girl hiding behind Takato. Mr. Matsuki smirked at his son and gave a wink. Yeah, this is Jeri. She lives a while from where Hypnos lives and her Okachan is working late, so she said Jeri would have to spend the night at a friend's. I was wondering if you guys would let her stay the night? Well, of course you can, Jeri, Mrs. Matsuki said, walking up to the girl. I'll get you some of my old pajamas. No need, Mrs. Matsuki. I have my own, Jeri said with a polite smile as she took the bag that Takato was holding. Well, okay. Takato, I'm assuming she's sleeping in your room? Takato nodded to his mother. She'll sleep on my bed. I'll take the extra futon, he said as he took his goggles off his forehead. Jeri shook her head. No, you don't have to do that, Takato-kun. Cinnamon and I are just fine if we have to sleep on the futon. No, Jeri-chan. You're a guest, and a lady guest at that. I can't have you sleeping on the futon now, can I? He tilted his head and bore the ever-popular fox-like grin that Naruto always had when he was mischievous, flirty, or just plain happy. Right now, Takato was just being mischievous, though in the mind of his parents he was being flirty. Mr. and Mrs. Matsuki glanced at each other, and held in their laughs as Takato looked confused when he took note of Jeri's flushed cheeks. Cinnamon looked up from Jeri's arms between Takato and Jeri. Humans, so unpredictable, the in-training Digimon thought. Well, I'll get the extra futon. Takato, you can take Jeri to your room. No funny business though, Mr. Matsuki said with a mischievous smirk. Otiu-san! Takato exclaimed as he began to blush rather heavily, and Jeri's blush increased in brightness, so much she could have rivaled Hinata. Now, Takato, Takahiro was only kidding, weren't you, Takun? She asked with a sickeningly sweet voice that promised pain should he make that joke again. Takahiro's sweat dropped. Yes, Yoshi-chan, he stuttered out nervously as he took note of the demonic aura surrounding his wife. The two preteens and Cinnamon's sweat dropped before they humorously moved away from Takato's seemingly insane parents. The two headed upstairs where Takato showed her the bathroom, and where his room was. Not wanting the male Digimon to see her, Jeri handed Cinnamon to Takato. No, I must stay with you, Jeri. I am your Digimon. What if an enemy tries to kidnap you while you're in there? Cinnamon argued. Then I'll just call on you two boys to help me. Then Jeri smiled as she patted her Digimon, causing Cinnamon to purr softly as she stroked his fur before leaving to go into the bathroom. When the Digimon and Tamer got into the room, Cinnamon immediately hopped out of Takato's arms and jumped onto the bed. Cool, this thing is so bouncy. Cinnamon laughed, saying each word with each jump he made. Takato chuckled as he watched the hyperactive talking head jump up and down on his bed rapidly as if he were on sugar high before he suddenly landed with a plop and knocked out, releasing light snores. Takato's sweat dropped at how quickly the in-training Digimon fell asleep. Takato then looked at the clock on his bedside table. 10:30. Best get to sleep, Takato said with a yawn. Takato then walked to his side table and turned on the lamp to get some light for him to see. He opened his closet and took out a white t-shirt and a pair of comfortable, lengthy cotton pants. He quickly did his pants first so that just in case Jeri had finished she wouldn't see his lower half. Then he took off his shirt, and unknown to him, just as he did that, Jeri had opened the door. Jeri's brown eyes widened in awe, and she swore that she nearly drooled when she saw Takato's body. For a 12-year-old he was rather physically fit. A/N, fighting Digimon and training with Naruto can do a lot for a person. His arms were muscular, but they were lean, not bulky, showing that they were gained through much hard work. His chest was still developing muscle, but Jeri had no doubt when he hit puberty he would turn out rather hot was the only word that graced her thoughts. Finally she looked at his abdominal area and saw that he had a developing six-pack. The definition was clearly shown, and damn, he was working it. Jeri quickly wiped away the little bit of blood that flowed from her nose and went back to the bathroom to wipe it off. Then she entered Takato's bedroom to find him with his shirt on, much to her disappointment after seeing what was underneath the white t-shirt, and laying out the futon for him to sleep on. Oh hey Jeri-chan, Takato said with a small wave. Takato looked at the pajama-clad girl. Even though they were rather baggy, Takato's hormones had him scanning her body with just a single glance. Her hair was not done up in his little ponytail and was let loose, so her hair flowed down and was longer as it extended past her neck. Her developing breasts were slightly shown through the slightly small top, and Takato nearly got a nosebleed, but he resisted the act through sheer willpower. The pants were nearly skin-tight as they showed her long, for a 12-year-old, lean legs. Jeri had used to do gymnastics for the Shinjuku Junior High gymnastics team, but stopped when her usually high grades started slipping because of it, and apparently the results of that acrobatic training were still in effect. Takato quickly turned away before coughing. Yeah, well, Cinnamon's already asleep, so, good night, Jeri-chan, Takato said as he was about to climb into the futon. Takato-kun. Jeri walked up to her friend and looked up at him. It was then that she now realized he was taller than her by a good 2 to 3 inches. Takato answered with a raised eyebrow. Jeri fidgeted before looking directly into his eyes. Arigato, she stated with a small blush. Takato just got even more confused. For what, exactly? Well, you helped me get through the time when I thought Leomon had died, and you helped reassure that if Cinnamon were to digivolve back into Leomon that he would remember me. And for letting me and Cinnamon stay here for the night. Takato swallowed audibly before nervously scratching the back of his head. Ah shucks, it's no problem. You're my friend Jeri-chan. I care about you, he said with a grin and a slight blush when he realized how the last part would sound to a female. Jeri blushed a bit at that before hugging the goggle-wearing Tamer, and then planting a kiss on his cheek and then retreated from his stunned, blushing form. Jeri giggled at Takado's face before gently moving Cinnamon over and going underneath the warm covers. Takado raised his hand to his cheek and looked at Jeri with a still stunned look. He turned off the bedside table lamp and then went under the covers of his futon. Takado then touched his cheek once before uttering a single syllable before he fainted from the amount of blood that rushed to his head. Wow! The next day, Takado's alarm clock released its annoying buzzing sound and caused the two preteens and one Digimon to wake up and glare at the evil invention. At least he had set the clock for a late time, 10:30 a.m. the clock read. With a yawn, all three occupants of Takado's room got up. Well, Cinnamon couldn't really get up since he was a talking head, but you get my point. Jeri climbed out of Takado's bed as Cinnamon jumped down from the soft mattress onto the hard wooden floor. Then the door opened to reveal Yoshimatsuki, who was smiling brightly. Apparently she was a morning person. Ah, good, you kids are awake. Takado, Jeri and talking head, breakfast is ready in the kitchen, so have a shower. Jeri, I washed and ironed your clothes from yesterday since I realized last night you didn't bring any extra clothes. Jeri smiled sleepily. Arigato, Mrs. Matsuki. The older woman smiled before leaving the room to go and manage the bakery downstairs. The two preteens then took turns to use the bathroom. Jeri went first since Takado had fallen back down on his futon right after his mother left. After getting Takado out of bed, Jeri managed to get the rag doll of a boy into the bathroom by himself before closing the door. After Takado's shower, Jeri was waiting outside with a grin on her face as she saw Takado with a towel wrapped around his waist and nothing covering his top half. Jeri's mind suddenly ventured into the forbidden zone. What's underneath the towel? She mused, only for a bright pink to flood her face as she mentally kicked herself and forced the blush down. Mind out of the gutter, Jeri. Oka-chan taught you better than to have your mind turned towards Takado's. Hunky. Jeri was put out her thoughts when Takado opened the previously closed door that led to his room, dressed in his usual garb. A blue hooded sweater over a white t-shirt, a pair of gray pants, his goggles worn on his forehead and his new golden Democrat Arkansas worn around his neck like a pendant, and his card case in his pocket. He quickly pulled on his socks and walked past Jeri as he headed downstairs. Jeri-chan, come on, aren't you gonna have breakfast? He asked. Jeri shook her head of whatever dirty thoughts were left in them and nodded. Hi, come on, Cinnamon. She bent down to pick up the horned-in-training Digimon and headed downstairs to be greeted with a classic breakfast of pancakes and waffles. After the Digimon and two Tamers eat, they quickly put on their shoes and headed outside. Oka-chan, Ota-san, we're going out now, Takado told his mother. Yashin and Takahiro waved to their son as they just handed a bag of pastries to a customer. Have fun, Takado, the two parents said before saying bye to their customer. However, before they even took 5 steps outside the door of the bakery/house, Jeri, Takado and Cinnamon were greeted to the sight of the other Tamers and their Digimon. Gilman was among the throng before the digital hazard-bearing Digimon walked up next to his partner. Hey guys, Takado said with a wave. What's up? I'm Takado. I don't know if you noticed, but what's up, is that? Naruto pointed up to the sky at an angle, and Takado and Jeri, along with the rest of the group, turned their heads in the direction Naruto's hand pointed. Takado, Jeri and Cinnamon's eyes widened as they saw, floating in the sky was a large swirling vortex of pink and purple. The vortex hovered near to one of Shinjuku's many skyscrapers before a loud roar sounded from the vortex. Then the Tamer's eyes widened, along with that of their Digimon partners, as they spied the ever-familiar red-orange substance that made up the monstrous behemoth from the digital world. No way, that's impossible, Ryo said to Monodramon. I know, Redhead and Foxgirl took it out back in the digital world, as Zhuqiaomon, the purple-scaled dragon, replied to his Tamer. Jeri latched onto Takado as she'd Cinnamon in her other arm. Rika took her place by Naruto's side, and they all gazed up as the gelatinous form of the data-destroying beast seemed to endlessly flow from the vortex. That's the... Takado couldn't finish his sentence as his surprise and sudden feeling of fear welled up inside of him. The D-Reaper Naruto and Doraemon growled.